Alright, you and I are about to jump into the story of Hunok, who spent 20 years in another world waiting for this exact moment to slay the ultimate beast. Right there stands the monster, a winged, gargoyle-like demon, sneering at the exhausted heroes, mockingly telling them they did an impressive job surviving this far. The party includes the saint, the mage, the knight, and the hero himself. The demon's praise is pure provocation. They are all completely at their limit. Hunok finds the beast's words bizarre, questioning its confidence since he is barely holding himself together too. The demon merely scoffs, unleashing a vicious attack, but the hero blocks with his spear while the mage casts barriers to shield the battered group. The monster issues an ultimatum: submit or die. Soon, this entire land will become its dark kingdom, ruled by its fangs and claws. But Hunok refuses to back down, blocking every strike and declaring that they need to end this battle right now. Wasting no time, he hurls his legendary spear wrapped in the flames of paradox, triggering a massive, blinding explosion. Yet, even that devastating blast is not enough to kill the demon. Their deadly clash scales up into the skies, shredding everything around them. The monster's sharp claws manage to tear through the hero's guard and strike him hard. Hunok gets slammed into the dirt, and the demon looms over him, bragging that such a weak attack cannot even scratch him. Even flat on his back, the hero laughs at that claim, picking himself up to prepare his final strike. He channels energy until his spear glows white-hot, yelling that this next blow will easily shatter the beast's hollow arrogance. Watch closely now. He unleashes an explosion visible even on the horizon. As smoke clears, the demon's crown shatters, and it grudgingly admits it has been defeated by a mere human. At that exact moment, Hunok coldly corrects him, stating he does not belong to this world. The dying demon just laughs, sneering that even in death, the land will absorb its body, allowing it to return one day. But panic sets in as its body starts turning to ash. Hunok explains, those dark flames are the flames of paradox, which do not need oxygen to burn, using abstract concepts as their fuel instead. Because of this, the demon's legendary cheat of reviving after centuries is completely ruined. Still, the monster cackles, saying it does not matter, because nobody will ever remember Hunok as their savior. Now, you and I probably expected him to be shocked, but Hunok calmly admits he already knew all along, completely stunning the demon. The priestess quickly tries to intervene, begging him not to listen to the monster's lies, but Hunok decides it is time to drop the act. He reveals that the saint's attempts to seduce him were just a plot to weaken his mind, since he is an outsider, making sure she could easily assassinate him at the right moment without any struggle. She stands frozen in pure shock, unable to speak. Hunok then points out that the others are just as rotten. Take the knight, for example. He was promised a legendary royal treasure by the emperor just to execute Hunok after the battle, purely out of fear he might seize the throne. When asked how he knew, the hero just continues, exposing that the mage hates him because Hunok opposes their slavery system. Everyone in this party has their own dirty, selfish motives. He calmly states he discovered this conspiracy 5 years ago, yet kept fighting for them anyway. The dying demon is utterly baffled, unable to comprehend his reasoning. With such godlike power, why did Hunok not just destroy this ungrateful world? Hunok replies that he spared them because he only ever wanted one thing: to go home. Now, the story flashes back 20 years to 2005 on Earth, where he was just an ordinary 30-year-old office worker, living a quiet life. Everything changed when a desperate goddess summoned him, begging him to save her world from ruin. Since he was already an anime and manga fan, he quickly understood the setup, but the reality was far more brutal than any fiction. Dropped into pure chaos, he tried desperately to escape and return home, only to realize there was only one way back: defeat the monsters and save this godforsaken world. Left with no choice, he spent 20 brutal years fighting. He trained endlessly, survived deadly beasts, and endured the sheer malice of selfish humans. For instance, he once rescued a dying child lost in a freezing, snowy forest, but when he brought her back, the villagers refused to waste medicine on a half-dead kid. It was infuriating, but he sucked it up. On top of that, and trust me, you and I would have lost our minds dealing with their terrible hygiene and lack of medicine. Trust me, you and I would hate this world. Even simple infections meant amputations, because every healer was drafted for war. When he finally brings back a rescued child, a corrupt priest accuses him of working with monsters, questioning how he even survived. And while supposed heretics are burned at the stake just to keep the freezing city warm, a crazy nun claims he survived using demonic power. She demands an exorcism and pressures him to surrender the child, warning him not to defy their goddess. Dealing with all this crap, our main character realizes The real monsters here are not the beasts outside, but the humans who have absolutely no sense of morals or human rights. Yet, he endured this absolute hell for 20 long years. After endless suffering, he finally screams at the heavens, demanding that the goddess keep her original promise. A blinding beam of light pierces through the dark, corrupted clouds, and the goddess admits he fought well, defeating the final beast on his own. That is when Hyun reminds her of their deal. The moment his mission was complete, he could go back home to Earth with all his memories intact. But the goddess hesitates, asking if he really hates this world, especially since his power now literally threatens her. She warns him that back on Earth, he will lose his special status and return to being completely ordinary. But Hyun does not care. He cuts her off, making it crystal clear he just wants out, no matter what. The goddess tells him the world is finally free of monsters, asking one last time if he will regret leaving. Never. He drops his spear, staring at his scarred, calloused hands. All he wanted was to go home. As the burden lifts, he realizes he is finally escaping this godforsaken world. A second later, a brilliant pillar of light wraps around him. And here is the twist. You need to watch closely, she reveals. His original human body is already dead, so his soul must take over someone else's. Confused, Hyun asks whose body he will get, but she refuses to give details, simply promising he will survive. Honestly, he does not care. Any life back on Earth is a million times better than staying in this nightmare. When he finally opens his eyes, he is back on Earth. The year is 2025. Our hero is now inside the body of a guy named Yuchan Seo. Staring in his bedroom mirror, he realizes he is finally whole. The reality of his return hits him when he turns on the faucet and sees crystal clear, clean water, a luxury that did not exist in that terrible fantasy world. He spots a modern electric stove, realizing he can finally cook a warm meal without shivering over a campfire in the freezing wild. But most of all, he craved simple, crispy, fried chicken. The sheer joy of having his normal life back completely overwhelms his senses. Sure, Earth has changed a lot since 20 years ago, but to Hunio, now living as Yuchan, none of that matters. You and I both know he deserves this peace. All he wants is to adapt and live his new life. But just as our hero is settling in, a massive, mysterious beam of light crashes down in the distant city skyline. Ignoring the commotion for now, he decides to enjoy his hard-earned comfort. First stop, a steaming hot shower, an impossible luxury in his past life. He even turns on the crisp air conditioning, which feels like absolute heaven after decades of endless torment. Looking outside at the bright, clear sky, so different from the gloomy wasteland, he notes that he will have to adjust to this modern world. Unfortunately, his hard-earned peace is cut short when something deeply unsettling appears right outside his high-rise window. It is definitely not human. It is a monster. Suddenly, the building's emergency alarms blare out, warning everyone that a dimensional rift has opened, and they must evacuate to the underground shelters immediately. Within seconds, vicious beasts smash through the glass windows, invading the entire apartment complex. Hunio bolts down the stairwell, desperately trying to comprehend this incredibly absurd situation. To lose the creatures hot on his heels, he leaps out a window, barely escaping their deadly claws. On his way down, he finds a lost child and quickly warns them to head straight to the safety of the shelters. But the kid looks back with an eerie calm, asking if he is not planning to hunt the monsters down. Totally bewildered, Hunio listens as the kid drops a massive bombshell. Apparently, monsters have been invading Earth for the last 13 years. Dimensional rifts, or ruptures, constantly spawn these creatures, and nobody knows where they actually come from. But despite the danger, this kid refuses to run. They want to fight. As Hunio processes this insane reality, you and I are left waiting to see how he survives his worst nightmare returning. Alright, let's dive into a story where a guy spends 20 years in hell to get home, only to find Earth is in absolute chaos. To him, this whole mess had to be that goddess's fault. When the kid asked why he didn't know anything, he lied, claiming he just moved back from the United States. The kid totally fell for it and started listing global disasters, showing how bad things were everywhere. Awkwardly, Hyunyuk quickly changed the subject by asking about hunters. That got the kid hyped, and he started talking about Li Shan, a famous hunter. She was a member of the Janab Guild, ranked among the world's strongest, and famous for slaying monsters with a massive two-handed greatsword. Even after changing the topic, Hyun-uk became lost in thought, wondering how normal humans could possibly fight off those beasts. But before he could think it through, creepy noises echoed nearby. Reacting instantly, he covered the boy's mouth, sensing that a pack of monsters was closing in. He spotted 5 of them, but instantly remembered dodging 6 earlier. which meant one was still hiding in the shadows. Back in his old world, he could have cleared this with a blink. But stuck in this weak, unawakened body, he wasn't sure what he could handle. Still, he couldn't just leave a helpless kid behind. Now, watch closely, because facing 6 beasts unarmed is pure suicide. But then he suddenly feels a spark of mana in the air. The electric hum was unmistakable, feeling exactly like the magic from that hellish other dimension. Darting forward, he unleashed pitch-black flames directly into a monster's face, instantly realizing his deep mana control was still fully intact. After 20 years of pure survival, channeling magic was completely instinctive. The legendary flames of paradox remained engraved in his soul, not his body. The output was heavily nerfed, but it was still overkill for these low-level mobs. Within seconds, he was turning every single beast around him into piles of ash. The kid's jaw hit the floor, completely starstruck by the explosive display. Hyun-uk, however, was deeply disappointed that basic mana manipulation was treated as some ultra-rare, big-deal superpower on Earth. Giving a casual shrug, he was just glad the kid was safe, even while cringing inside at their fancy unique skill terminology. Suddenly, the kid grabbed a broken stick, confidently saying some YouTube hunter taught him to always double-tap monsters to make sure they are actually dead. He marched right up to the corpses, basically begging to get killed. Hyun-uk snapped a quick warning, explaining that the flames of paradox never extinguish until the target's life force is entirely gone. I know what you are thinking. If those flames are still dancing, the beasts are definitely still alive. Suddenly, a half-charred monster lunged at the kid, but Hyun-uk materialized in a flash, instantly crushing the creature's skull with his bare palm. He deadpanned that he had absolutely no clue what YouTube was, but the kid needed to turn it off. Then, he swiped the branch. Gripping the flimsy stick, he pinned the monster down as his power completely reduced the rest of its body to blackened charcoal. Hyun-uk easily cleaved the remaining beasts in half using the stick, leaving the boy utterly convinced he was some undercover, high-rank hunter. But Hyun-uk's inner thoughts were just one big, exhausted sigh of disappointment. Even after dragging himself all the way back to Earth, he was still breathing in this rancid stench of fresh blood. After surviving 2 decades of absolute hell, this felt like a massive slap in the face. Both worlds were exactly the same, and it deeply annoyed him. Keeping his cool, he guided the kid forward until they finally reached an underground shelter. The moment they stepped inside, the boy's mother rushed over, sobbing with a mix of pure terror and absolute relief. She repeatedly thanked Hyun-uk for bringing her little boy back safe, but he just shrugged it off. Glancing closely at her expensive clothes and sparkling crystal earrings, he realized the brat was probably just a spoiled rich kid. Well, that explained a lot. But their peaceful reunion was cut short when the entire shelter started violently shaking. A colossal monster completely demolished the reinforced concrete wall with a single, devastating strike. It was a massive, eyeless mutant boasting a giant, terrifying mouth, radiating a level of danger far beyond the earlier beasts. Total chaos erupted. Terrified civilians scrambled blindly in all directions, but with hordes of monsters waiting outside, they were utterly trapped. Surrounded by death on all sides, the shaking kid pulled on him, yelling that they had to run. Meanwhile, Hyun-uk felt deeply annoyed. He hadn't asked for much, just to go home to the normal life he remembered. Yet, he was dragged right back into the fire. Looking at this nightmare, you and I have to wonder if a peaceful life was really too much to ask. He turned and asked the boy why a rich kid was so desperate to become a hunter, when he could easily live in luxury without ever picking up a weapon. Tears in his eyes, the boy explained that he lost his father to a monster when a corrosion rift ripped open right near their shelter. They could not escape in time. His father stayed behind, so only the boy survived. Despite being weak and completely out of his depth, the young boy declared he wanted to hunt monsters to save the world. Trust me, it sounds like a childish dream, but we know it actually means everything to him. Hearing this, Hyunsk smiled and agreed it was not stupid, encouraging him that he could indeed become a top hunter, but he did not have to bear that heavy burden alone. Suddenly, his mother grabbed him, shouting that they had to run immediately. But before they could run, a terrifyingly powerful pressure suddenly filled the area. The boy spun around and watched Hunoki confront the massive beast, unleashing black flames that completely incinerated the monster. With the beast turned to ash, Hunok looked back and bluntly told the kid that saving the world is a job for veterans only. That basically sums up his crazy story. Summoned to another world, he battled deadly monsters for 20 years before finally finding a way back to Earth. The real shocker? Despite saving an entire alternate world, he had absolutely zero intention of fighting the monsters plaguing Earth. Pay attention here. Despite saving one world already, He has absolutely no interest in doing it again. Instead, he just wanted to game, eat snacks, chug soda, and fully enjoy all the perks of modern society. He fell in love with smartphones, amazed by how he could control everything with a few simple taps on the screen. He kept ordering non-stop delivery through food apps until his bank account suddenly dropped straight to zero. The physical body he was using originally belonged to Yuch Chan, so, an ordinary logistics worker who lost his livelihood after a massive corrosion-type rift drove his company into bankruptcy. He had been living off his tiny severance check, but with the funds bone dry, Yuchen had to find a new income source. A regular office gig was out of the question, especially since he had been completely out of touch for 20 long years. To make matters worse, with constant dungeon breaks, modern companies only wanted top-tier talent. Still, he desperately needed cash to fund his lazy lifestyle. That was exactly when he stumbled on a recruitment flyer for active hunters. Given his decades of brutal combat experience, it was an obvious choice. But when he arrived at the Hunter Association, he found a massive crowd hoping for the exact same thing. Lately, becoming a certified hunter had turned into the ultimate dream job. Every candidate wanted to play the hero, earn crazy cash, and feel incredibly powerful. But as you and I know, reality is harsh, only a select few actually make it. And right now, a major player is about to walk through those doors. Flanked by elite bodyguards, it was Lee Soon, one of the top 10 strongest hunters on Earth and a leader in the Jonab Guild. Her legendary aura instantly stole the spotlight, leaving the entire crowd utterly starstruck. Renowned worldwide for her immense combat power and status, she naturally commanded every single eye in the room. Later, during the live evaluation matches inside the stadium, Li Chuan kept a very close eye on the top rookie prospect. Hansanga was heavily favored to dominate this entire selection. The talented young woman possessed a high-tier lightning ability, marking her as a prodigy with limit-breaking potential. Watching her, Lion jokingly wondered if those lightning sparks could be used to fast-charge smartphones. Her nearby assistant dryly noted she was a combat specialist, not some portable battery, emphasizing that Hansanga was highly trained and bound for greatness. Still, Lion remained skeptical, pointing out that only a real life-or-death battle proves true worth. Another colleague chimed in, noting that academies shelter students from real danger, and facing a raw dungeon rift is nothing like sparring. So, without actual field experience, it was impossible to accurately gauge her true level. Liz agreed completely, reminding everyone that controlled testing will never compare to the chaos of a real battlefield. With a lighthearted smile, she tossed a piece of sweet candy to one assistant, which immediately annoyed the other helper who felt completely left out. But despite the playful banter, her serious thoughts remained unchanged. Fresh academy graduates almost always freeze up against genuine beasts and need time to adjust. Simply put, despite her raw talent, Hansang-A still needed to grow. Just then, the announcer roared that the matches were starting. Lai Yun prepared to do her job, keeping her eyes peeled to hand-pick candidates who could actually survive a real fight. But suddenly, the stadium announcer called out an incredibly bizarre participant. This rookie had zero training from any prestigious hunter academy, just an ordinary civilian who decided to sign up anyway, a brave civilian stepping up. Trust me, you and I need to remember this name. Yuchan Seok. Alright, you and I are about to see Hu Chanyo struggle with his brand new, highly uncomfortable identity. The rules are simple, no bringing your own weapons, and absolutely no lethal blows are allowed. Meanwhile, Hein Sok starts questioning his choices, even though he initially signed up purely for the cash. He knows that becoming a hunter means carrying the heavy burden of saving a world that is completely falling apart. But honestly, deep down, he just wants to eat good food and live a peaceful life. Meanwhile, his spear-wielding opponent cannot believe his eyes. To this guy, facing a self-taught warrior who never even stepped foot in the academy is just insulting. On the flip side, Hunok knows he has to absolutely dominate this tournament to get what he wants. The moment the match starts, his opponent charges with a flaming strike, thinking he is going to win easily. But in a flash, Hunoke dodged and completely vanished, leaving his weapon behind. Watch closely here, he reappears right beside his opponent, proving he does not even need a weapon for this. With lightning speed, he digs a punch straight into the guy's gut, pins his foot to freeze him, and finishes with a brutal left hook. That final blow instantly drops the guy to his knees, completely knocked out. Without breaking a sweat, Hwan Suk sees it is already over. He did not even bother using his spear simply because he wanted to avoid hurting the guy. Yet, he still won with absolute ease. To him, this felt almost unfair since his opponent was clearly just a complete rookie. Up in the stands, Li Yun is instantly intrigued, demanding to know exactly who this mysterious fighter is. Checking his file, she finds out he works for a shipping company and has basically zero mana inside his body, which makes his epic performance utterly bizarre. An assistant murmurs that moves like that require massive mana, unless it was just pure luck. Hearing this, Lisa Yuna subtly hands him a piece of candy, basically telling him to shut his mouth. She explains that it is not a lack of mana, but rather a choice to keep it uncollected, raising even more questions about Hunok's actual power. Now, you and I both know, Hyun is going to have to prove his worth even more. He walks right up to another standing opponent, calmly promising that this next blow will not kill him. With a swift, heavy punch straight to the face, he ends the fight instantly. It is official, Yu Chanok wins. The judges immediately start arguing, completely baffled. They cannot comprehend how a guy with his boring profile can fight like an absolute beast. While everyone is distracted by the chaotic argument, Lisa Yun decides it is time to make her move. Determined to see his real potential with her own eyes, she leaves the VIP stands and goes to speak directly with the association president. Meanwhile, Hunoki continues to crush rivals in the arena. Even when opponents charge him with massive hammers, daggers, or swords, the result never changes. He demolishes every single one barehanded, without breaking a single sweat. To him, every single challenger feels ridiculously weak. No matter who steps up, nobody can touch the godlike level he reached after 20 brutal years in another world. Bored of these easy wins, Hunok wonders if there is anyone actually worth fighting. And right on cue, a real challenger finally steps up. The crowd's absolute favorite and the tournament's most powerful prodigy, Han Sung-ae, enters as the other grand finalist. The announcer hypes her up as the only warrior capable of stopping this insanely overpowered newcomer. Looking at her, Hwan-sok can tell she is on another level. She is the first opponent with a truly massive amount of mana inside her. Regardless, Han Sung-ae is not intimidated at all. She claims his streak is pure luck and promises his little run ends right here, right now. In response, Hanok just chuckles, asking if that is the standard script they teach all those academy heroes. Drawing her sword, Hanunga points out he seems to have zero special skills beyond simple physical strikes. But even so, she is not going to hold back an inch. Hans casually replies that he does have a unique skill, but he is holding it back to avoid accidentally killing her. The battle explodes, and Han Sung-ae charges forward with terrifying speed, drawing her sword like a flash of lightning. But despite that speed, the attack completely whiffs. She is shocked he dodged, while Hunok casually admits her strike was actually pretty interesting. He analyzes her trick, realizing she uses electricity to magnetize her sheath and blade, drastically boosting her drawing speed. An efficient trick, for sure. But he instantly points out a fatal flaw. By focusing purely on speed, she leaves herself wide open. No matter how fast a straight-line attack is, it is easy to dodge, and that is where we leave things today. Alright, you and I are about to watch a cocky girl get her entire reality shattered in this match. She shifts her stance and unleashes a barrage of lightning strikes. Hans easily predicts her repetitive patterns, but quickly realizes this is just a setup for something bigger. Suddenly, she changes her tactics completely, conjuring a massive lightning storm that ramps up her destructive power to the absolute limit. Watching her, Hunok realizes she is burning through her mana too fast, overloading her own body. If she keeps this up, she will end up breaking her own bones. Knowing the danger, he decides to end this duel right now. He closes the distance and warns her to raise her left hand if it gets too painful. Then, he lands a brutal gut punch that completely shatters her defense. After that single strike, the match turns into a total beatdown. Han Sang-ah completely loses her footing, unable to fight back. Hyun unleashes a relentless barrage of heavy strikes, knocking her out cold right there. With the fight over, the arena judges stare in absolute disbelief, completely unable to process how easily she was defeated. The Academy's absolute best student just got utterly crushed. Walking out of the ring, Hyunok admits she had some skills, but she relies way too much on pure mana while ignoring basic physical strength. Even after taking that devastating beating, Hansen-A desperately tries to stand back up. But then, Hyanson notices something: she actually raised her left hand, just like he told her to. He finds her stubbornness pretty amusing. But before he can leave, an association official rushes into the arena and whispers to the announcer, who immediately grabs the microphone. Now don't blink, because everything changes here. The announcer tells our winner, Yu Chinoke, to take a quick rest. Confused, Hines asks if he has already won the whole tournament. Instead, they announce a surprise exhibition match between the champion and an actual, active pro hunter. A special duel approved by the president himself. Liunan's assistants smile, knowing exactly what is happening. When the opponent walks out, Hunio does not recognize her, but the roaring crowd proves she is an absolute superstar. He wonders why they are setting up this match, realizing she probably just wants to test his hidden powers. Honestly, this setup feels exactly like the annoying situations he used to deal with back in the other world. It is just another Tuesday for him. Then, a powerful figure steps into the arena carrying a massive greatsword. She apologizes for the sudden ambush, explaining she simply needed to see his raw strength with her own eyes. Introducing herself as Lee Si from the famous Janabub Guild, she mentions this entire tournament seems far too easy for a guy like him. She directly challenges him to a clash right here, though she notes he is free to walk away if he is scared. Feeling her presence, let's pause, because you and I can both see this woman is on an entirely different level, with an absurd amount of mana radiating off her. With his current physical body, he knows surviving this clash is going to be incredibly tough. Even with a proper weapon, his actual chances of winning are basically zero. Yet, without any hesitation, he accepts. He tells Lee Seaman he still has plenty of fuel left, making her grin with excitement. She loves the attitude. Meanwhile, a broken and foaming Han Sung is carried out of the arena on a stretcher. He needs to maximize his fame from this event, and Lee Sirin is the absolute perfect stepping stone to do it. So, he plans to use this fight to skyrocket his worth as a hunter. Instantly, the crowd goes wild. The announcer is hyped, and Leon wastes no time rushing him with pure, merciless intent. Her sword strikes are insanely heavy. Even while blocking with his spear, he gets sent flying backward. With a desperate effort, he parries a blow and slips away to gain some distance. But he is already exhausted, realizing her defense has absolutely zero openings. His body is rapidly hitting its physical limit. Lee Soon calls him out, feeling disappointed because she wanted a real warm-up, but he is already out of breath. Still, she praises him for lasting 5 whole minutes against a top-tier pro like her. To put him out of his misery, she decides to end this quickly so he can rest. She lunges forward with her greatsword to finish Hun Sok in a single strike. Right then, he realizes his body is completely dry of mana, and there is none left in the air either. He really hated to show his hand, but he must activate the Flames of Paradox. In that split second, her sword smashes directly into him. Or at least, that is what Lion thinks just happened. But he is untouched, and trust me, you and I are ready for his comeback. Alright, you and I are diving right into the moment she realizes his entire body is made of pure, consuming flames. This was his absolute trump card, the very power he relied on constantly before he finally returned to Earth. He could control these fires flawlessly, even keeping his clothes intact by burning abstract concepts like his own reason and memories. But right now, the fuel was completely different. He was burning his own fatigue. He gained a massive speed boost and rushed forward, clashing his spear against Liowin's blade, driving her excitement through the roof. They traded devastating blows in a relentless, intense clash. But Lai soon started to realize something was off. She noticed the mana in the air was fluctuating wildly, rising and falling in a completely chaotic pattern. She suspected he was using raw mana to feed the fire, while Hunoke already knew exactly how his ability operated. He knew these paradoxical flames released mana by incinerating those abstract concepts, so he sparked it with mana and fueled it with his own exhaustion, creating an endless cycle of massive energy. In the middle of the fight, he realized his real strength was a war of attrition that he could sustain forever. Watch closely here, even completely exhausted. He keeps pushing forward and even starts provoking Liun, asking if she liked guys who never knew when to give up. Her reply? She absolutely hated them. But just like a burnt tree turns to ash and cannot reignite, even these paradoxical flames eventually leave behind residues. Once everything burns out, the fire dies. Lee So-won then checked the clock, marking the total fight time at 4 hours and 17 minutes. She asked if he had any fight left, and Hwan Sok admitted he was done, begging her to spare him. And so, the announcer declared that despite his incredible efforts, the winner was Lee So-won. After the match, she pulled a lollipop from her chest, shocking her own assistants, and handed it over as a reward. She also slipped him a business card, telling him to get in touch so they could talk, before walking away. While the announcer called the winner backstage for her prize, Hunoke wondered if this Janabi group was some kind of hunter agency. Later, while happily munching on that same lollipop, he scrolled through his phone and realized his hunter license was stored right there. It seemed incredibly advanced, letting him access everything from hunter forums and gear markets to special discounts and emergency services. I know what you are thinking. But yes, this guy is seriously amazed by a simple cell phone. Suddenly, a massive muscular guy approached Hunok, mentioning that he looked way better in person than on the screen. Confused by the sudden attention, Hunok directly asked who he was. The giant handed over a card, introducing himself as Sun Hyun from the powerful Thai guild. He confidently claimed he had high hopes for him, promising that under his guidance, Hunok would truly shine. It sounded like a solid offer, but Hunok immediately remembered Lee Sun and her request for him to call. Since he had another major priority right now, he decided not to give an instant reply, keeping the business card and promising to think it over very carefully before deciding. Sangan agreed, saying that major life choices always require careful thought. But then he leaned in close, using a threatening tone to pressure the boy into making the right decision. He walked away wishing him luck, but the second he was alone, Hunok knew he had zero interest in joining Tybeck. He pulled out his phone and called Lee Yun, who immediately picked up and demanded to know where he was. She ordered him to the second floor of the association to a restaurant called The Hut, located right inside the building. When Hunok arrived, a waitress welcomed him warmly, leading him straight to Lisa Yun, who was waiting at a table. She noted that he was incredibly early and gestured for him to take a seat. Noticing his tense expression, Lisa Yun asked if something had happened, so Hunok explained that a massive guy named Se Hyun from Tybeck just tried to recruit him. Hearing this, Lisa Chun remarked that with Tybeck interested, other guilds would be too terrified to approach. Even so, Hunoke wanted to know if that rule applied to Janabi as well, and she quickly replied that it did not, making it clear she had zero plans of recruiting him. Instead, Leon offered a different path, proposing he work directly for her as a freelancer without any guild attachments. This completely baffled Hun Sael, who had no idea you could even work as a hunter without a guild. So Lee San explained further, saying that standard guilds like Songhez would usually just offer him a low-level junior position. Hyun Seok did not understand, leaving you and me to discover what a junior role means next time. Alright, you and I are diving into how guilds rank members junior, senior, and associate. Basically, a junior reports to a senior, who runs a team organized by an associate. An associate is basically a partner, taking a direct cut of the guild's profits like a big corporate executive. Huno mentions he heard about this before, remembering how the very first guild copied this exact Korean corporate structure. But Lee Sean explains, you can skip the grind entirely if you get strong and famous enough, you jump straight to associate. Hearing that, Hunsok realizes that in this world, everything comes down to getting noticed. Lai Yun nods, confirming he nailed it. She hands him a piece of candy, praising his quick mind. As he unwraps it, Hanok asks if connections are the absolute most important thing in this world. After all, he has zero contacts, no real-world experience, and has never even been on a single actual mission. Right then, Lee Yun smiles and tells him she can help. She explains that her offer to have him work as a freelancer is the perfect shortcut for his growth. Hunok wonders why she is doing all this. Watch closely, here she reveals she is actually investing in his future. She plans to support him fully, believing that when the time comes to join a guild, he will naturally choose Janab. She slides a thick envelope across the table, suggesting he take a look at the papers inside. She emphasizes that the final choice is entirely up to him. Inside, there is an official request for a mission in Insan City, near Gyeonggo Island. She explains that a deadly corrosion zone formed there 2 years ago after a failed attempt to seal a rupture. Hunsok asks to confirm if the job is just clearing out that corrosion, but she warns him it is far more complex. They must map any leaks and completely wipe out every trace of corruption. Checking the details, Hunoki notes the mission starts in a month, offering 5 million upfront and another 15 million upon completion. For risking his life, the pay seems a bit low, but he accepts with a smile, aiming to use this chance to get stronger and famous. She leans in, demanding an immediate answer on whether he will accept her backing or not. Later, riding in a car, her assistant asks if the kid really has what it takes. She points out he is just a civilian who reached the tournament finals using bare fists, which is insanely impressive. Plus, he managed to survive 4 full hours against her. You and I know how crazy that is, but did she hold back? She confirms she did. After all, she is a seasoned veteran with 10 years of combat experience, and if she had gone all out, she easily could have ended his life. Even so, she stresses that lasting 4 hours against her is completely abnormal, adding that she doubts another monster like him will ever be born again. Meanwhile, various powerful players start heading toward Gyeongdo Island. Even though the job is highly dangerous and pays poorly, crowds gather because it is a golden opportunity. At the exact same time, Lee Soon discusses the mission over the phone with her boss. He reminds her that her evaluation does not matter as much as how the kid performs on the field. Talent is useless if he cannot fight alongside seasoned veterans. Lisa Yoon calmly replies that if that is his worry, he has absolutely nothing to fear. since she teamed the boy up with people of a matching skill level. Her boss says he trusts her, reminding her of her crucial rank within Janab, and asks how strong she thinks the kid will be once he reaches her level. Her response is a shocker, stating that if Yuch-chan-sik actually reaches her level, he might even be able to defeat the boss himself. With 1 month left, Hunoki receives an awesome delivery, featuring a massive spear of his ideal size, alongside a rare elixir that hunter pros use as an emergency health potion. This medicine holds concentrated mana capable of saving a dying hunter. Normally, a hunter utilizes mana the same way we drink filtered water from a home purifier. You draw dirty mana from the air, filter it inside your core, and release it when necessary. But this elixir skips that grind by directly pre-filtering clean mana straight from the surrounding air. For Hunok, this is a lifesaver since he manipulates energy differently, completely skipping the internal storage step to draw mana instantly from his surroundings. Plus, repeating this process naturally expands and strengthens his mana pathways, allowing him to control massive amounts of energy. Now, you and I will have to wait and see if his weak pathways can survive this upcoming deadly mission. With that elixir and a month of brutal training, you and I are about to see if he breaks his limits. Cut to the present, they've finally arrived at Gyeonggo Island. Si-hyuk follows the crowd of hunters and gets sent to Group 8, where Han Sanga immediately approaches him. He casually mentions her hair looks nice today, but she insists it's always like this, explaining that it only looked messy before due to some static electricity. Plus, she's glad they're grouped up since they can team up for this test. When Si-hyuk asks why, she bluntly admits that he's just way stronger than her, so she plans to observe and learn from him. Si-hyuk tries to change the subject by complaining about his heavy bag, but she immediately starts lecturing him about back workouts, spinal health, and chronic conditions that could be dangerous. That's when he realizes she's acting exactly like she did in the arena, concluding she has absolutely zero sense of humor. A moment later, an association staff member calls Group 8 together to go over their official mission. Noticing some total rookies in the crowd, he asks for everyone's patience while he quickly breaks down the terminology. He explains that these corrosion rifts are graded as Class 1, 2, or 3, alongside unclassified ones, with Class 1 being the absolute deadliest. Also, the very first rift to pop up in any region gets designated as an alpha. Right now, the Alpha Rift on Gyeonggo Island is located inside a church up in the northern sector. It's still unclassified, but since these rifts grow stronger by the minute, everyone is ordered to keep their distance and stay cautious. Listen closely, because their mission is very simple. Patrol the outer perimeter, locate any secondary corrosion rifts, and wipe them out on sight. Naturally, some recruits wonder if this is just a trap to weed out the rookies. As they finally close in on the island, some hunters mutter about a creepy vibe that makes their blood run cold. Si-hyuk just rolls his eyes, thinking they're being overly dramatic. The moment they're cleared to land, the staff reminds them they can radio the control room for help, wishing them good luck before leaving them. As soon as they hit the ground, the veterans take charge, completely ignoring any input from the rookies. Si-hyuk points out they need to cover 2 areas in a week, recommending they set up camp at Hwagosa Temple to operate efficiently. A snarky hunter in glasses barks back, questioning who he is to tell them where to camp. Si-hyuk explains that from the temple, they'll have a clear view of the whole region, and the mountain peak lets them watch the other sector directly. To him, this is basic logic, right? But the others scoff, claiming there are closer spots, and arguing that climbing a mountain just makes them easy targets to get cornered. He tries to counter, failing to see how they'd get trapped, but the veterans flat out refuse to take advice from a rookie. Faced with this, Si-hyuk silently notes that idiots who ignore logic exist in every world, so he decides to drop the issue. Instead, he suggests they split up, knowing it's their best move anyway. Soon after, he makes his way toward Hwagosa Temple, joined only by Sanga and a guy they spotted back at the beach. Si-hyuk expected Sanga to tag along, but the other guy catches his attention. Sensing his high mana, he asks if he's Kim Min-jae and why he joined their small squad. Min-jae tells them he figured they were helpless rookies and followed them purely out of concern for their safety. Si-hyuk thanks him, glad to have found at least one logical person on this island. But halfway up the trail, he abruptly freezes, gesturing for the others to quiet down and look ahead. Squinting through the trees, they spot a pack of sharp-toothed, pointy-eared beasts crawling up the mountain. Terrified, Min-jae whispers that they need to fall back immediately since there are easily 50 of them. Si-hyuk completely brushes off the idea of running, casually asking Min-jae what his signature power is. Stunned, Min-jae asks if he's actually planning to fight, but Si-hyuk points out that's literally what they're paid for. Demanding his stat, Min-jae finally admits he's a fire user. Nodding, Si-hyuk rapidly sketches out a strategy, telling him to strike on command, while Sangha asks what her role is. Min-jae still desperately protests that this is suicide, pointing out there are way too many enemies and they should just radio the base for backup. But Si-hyuk explains there's no time, as the other groups followed the coastline while they took the direct path to the vantage point. He also adds that, and trust me, you and I both know that relying on radios is a gamble, and if these monsters scatter, this whole island is going to turn into a nightmare. Let's see if Min-jae agrees with this crazy plan. Besides, after that earlier clash, other hunters would definitely just leave them to rot. So Hyuno realizes they have only one real choice fight right here. Sure, they are outnumbered, but a solid surprise attack might just flip the script. He quickly scratches a map in the dirt with his spear, laying out the battle plan. Min-jae strikes first, dropping a massive fireball right down the middle, while Hyuno guards the flanks to stop any escape. Then, Han Sangha uses her insane speed to sweep up whatever is left standing. Listening to him, Min-jae is stunned by how detailed the plan is, almost like Hyuno has hunted these beasts 1,000 times. Taking their spots on the steep mountain slope, they strike. Min-jae unleashes a blazing fireball, slamming straight into the pack, and roasting several monsters to ashes in a single, devastating blast. He shouts that his magic needs a brief cooldown, but Hyuno just tells him to prep the next shot immediately and charges straight into the chaos. Watch closely, he values pure efficiency here. He carves forward with his spear, severing limbs and piercing vital spots without wasting a single ounce of energy. For this to work, everyone must play their part perfectly while they wait for the next spell to charge. Hyuno focuses entirely on keeping the beasts cornered on the slope. He cannot block them all alone, which is why team coordination is key. While he holds the front line down, Sangha intercepts any stragglers, using her blinding speed to finish them off. Suddenly, Min-jae yells that his second fireball is good to go. Hyuno quickly yells back that he is clearing out, giving him a wide-open shot. The spell rips through the air, detonating on the rocky mountain slope and vaporizing the remaining horde. In just minutes, all the enemies are dead. But just when things settle down, the vibe shifts instantly. Min-jae suddenly raises a strange weapon and aims it right at Hyuno, making him flinch in shock. Relax, Min-jae just tells him to step aside and shoots a dead monster on the ground. It is actually a microchip tagging gun. He explains that they need it to claim their hard-earned loot after the battle. Since dragging giant, heavy corpses around is a pain, these chips mark them for recovery. Later on, scavengers will collect the loot, sell it off, and split the profits so the hunters get their fair cut of the cash. Hyuno skeptically asks if a system like that is even safe, and Min-jae admits that is exactly why finding a reliable dealer and having a contract is crucial. Honestly, you and I know he celebrates way too early after praising Hyuno for wiping out 50 high-level beasts. Out of nowhere, an absolute colossus crashes down, nearly crushing the squad. But Hyuno reacts instantly to pull Min-jae out of harm's way. This beast looks like the others, but it is heavily muscled, wingless, and resembles a giant bat. One look is all it takes to realize this is the boss, and its level is totally off the charts. Hyuno quickly reads the situation and decides to take this massive threat on by himself. He warns the others to stay back, knowing they would easily get chased down and killed if they ran. Min-jae wonders if that is truly necessary, while Sangha looks worried too, but Hyuno shuts down the debate, ordering them to back off because he has no intention of carrying their coffins home. To be honest, solo combat lets him unleash his paradox flames without having to worry about collateral damage. He needs to end this threat fast. Min-jae hesitantly starts prepping another spell anyway, asking Sangha if they should just stand by and watch. Staring closely at the battle, she notes that it is not necessary. Hyuno is completely dominating the field with blindingly fast, precise strikes. He drives forward, his spear shredding the monster's flesh while dodging every desperate counterattack. Every single stab unleashes dark, cursed flames from his spear tip, slowly eating away at the massive beast. As the fire spreads, the boss slows down, visibly weakened by the dark magic. Sangha watches in absolute awe of his relentless pressure and flawless, airtight combat moves. This is definitely not the skill level of a rookie. Honestly, Hyuno is practically playing with his food here, completely dictating the flow of the fight. Then, he suddenly hurls his spear high into the air, shocking his allies. It looks like a huge mistake, but he has calculated everything. The beast lunges to bite him, but that spear crashes down with insane force. And trust me, you'll love seeing its skull shatter. Yet, that monstrosity keeps clawing forward, clinging to life with insane resilience, while those paradox flames burn it alive. Seeing this, Hyuno-K steps up, ready to end this fight right now. He puts the beast down with zero hesitation. Once it drops, a dead, heavy silence fills the air. You and I can see Minjae and Sangha are completely shook, unable to comprehend what just went down. Just moments ago, it felt like the monster actually had the upper hand. But in reality, Hyunoke had been pulling the strings from the very start. Before they could even blink, the threat was already neutralized. Cool as ice, Hyunoke pulls out his spear, calmly asking Minjae if high-tier beasts usually just wander around this island. Minjae admits he is worried too, because a beast like this usually means they are standing in a Class 3 corrosion zone. This throws Hyunoke off, considering this entire region was supposed to be completely unclassified. Minjae explains the grim reality it probably mutated into a Class 3 zone overnight. Sangha tries to recall the details from their briefing, but Minjae cuts in, insisting that if this isn't Class 3, then absolutely nothing makes sense. He points out that the leap from an unclassified area to a Class 3 zone is massive. Now, pay close attention, because if that is true, the hunters trapped on this island stand zero chance of survival. Minjae begs to retreat and find the others, but Hyunoke shuts him down immediately. He states a hard truth: they cannot save everyone, and even he has his limits. Besides, this isn't a rescue op. Every hunter who set foot here knew exactly what they were signing up for. Their actual mission? Find and destroy whatever is causing this corrosion. Sangha snaps back, asking how he would feel if the tables were turned. Wouldn't he find it cruel? Wouldn't he beg for someone to save him? Hyunoke looks her dead in the eye. He understands emotions, sure, but he deals in cold results. In this game, casualties are inevitable, no matter how tragic it feels. Letting raw emotion guide your blade in a place like this will only get you killed. As dusk falls, the group finally reaches the ancient Huagasa temple. Hyunoke scans the area carefully, confirming that the interior is free from any active corrosive energy. He asks if Minjae spots anything. Nothing but pitch-black darkness, though Minjae does point toward a faint glow flickering far off in the distance, likely standard campfires lit by other groups. This immediately puts Hyunoke on edge. In a zone like this, fire is basically a homing beacon. I know what you're thinking, but against high-tier monsters, a single mistake here will get you killed. Still, he shoots a warning text over to Team 8, letting them know this is likely a Class 3 zone, and to stay low. As they settle in, Hyunoke asks for a quick breakdown on how these zones are actually shut down. Tracing a map in the dirt, Minjae explains that everything revolves around the core. Smash the core, and the toxic energy fades away entirely. Hearing this, Hyunoke realizes the path forward is actually pretty simple. Just find the core and break it. Later that night, while the others sleep, Hyunoke sets up a proximity sensor to keep them safe. Once they are secured, he slips away alone, stealthily scaling down the steep mountainside. He has already pinpointed where the dark energy is leaking from and figures he can reach the source in no time. But as he advances, a deafening roar echoes. He conjures his flames to light up the dark path ahead. Peering into the shadows, he freezes. This thing is on a completely different level, massive, terrifying, and ready to kill. Meanwhile, over at the Gyeongdo Island Command Center, absolute chaos is breaking loose. Red alerts are popping up everywhere as hunter casualties skyrocket. Team 5 has been completely annihilated, and Team 3 is taking heavy losses. Realizing they are in deep trouble, the commander declares a state of emergency and orders a full evacuation notice. Amid the panic, an operator spots something highly unusual on screen. A lone signature is moving straight toward the center of the zone. The boss orders them to establish contact and command a retreat. But when they verify the signal, they realize it is Team 8's very own Yu-chan OK, the first person to actually pinpoint the true rift. Desperate for answers, the commander orders an immediate terminal link to see if the kid is even still breathing. He knows that a sudden rift upgrade is practically unheard of, especially in this sector. It makes him wonder, could this rookie really have predicted the shift before anyone else? And trust me, you and I are about to see that things are already in absolute, total chaos. Chan OK is sprinting for his life, cursing because this thing is moving way faster than expected. Trust me, you do not want to be in this guy's shoes right now. Yet he casually flexes, saying anyone else would be dead by now. And honestly, he is probably right given how close that thing is. While sprinting, he trashes the Hunter Association, wondering how they completely messed up this threat rating. Meanwhile, back in HQ, a staffer tries to mute his annoying complaints, but the boss shrugs it off to focus on the real issue. They have proof that Yu-chan Sok is alive. In the middle of running, Yu-chan starts planning. He realizes his flames alone won't drop this monster in one shot. Time for a backup strategy. The plan? Burn it down first, then pierce it with his spear. But there is a catch. The beast is glued to his back, leaving zero room to strike. To make matters worse, he already drained most of the local mana during his earlier fights, meaning he cannot recharge his fires easily. Since he is stuck on this island, drawing energy from other regions is totally out of the question. He knows he has to survive using only the scraps of power left. Still, he pushes deeper into the danger zone until he spots the rift's core. And watch closely as he nears the portal. He actually mocks the beast, telling it to keep up because he has some quick business inside before killing it. Over at HQ, panic strikes the operators as Yuchan Seok's tracking signal suddenly goes completely dark. This means he has crossed into the deepest layer of the rift, completely cutting off their feeds. Stepping inside, Yuchan Seok is stunned. Instead of a hellish wasteland, he finds a beautiful, peaceful green field stretching out before him. This looks nothing like a terrifying high-level hazard zone. Scanning his surroundings, he realizes this Tier 3 space is actually surprisingly small for its dangerous rank. This makes him seriously doubt the guild's scales, wondering what level 1 and 2 zones look like, and if they are actually as incredibly simple as this place seems to be. But once the monster catches up, Hunok knows his little sightseeing tour is over. It is finally time to end this fight right now, leaving no room for retreat. The beast responds with an angry roar, lunging straight at him for the kill, while he just stands there, calmly reading its movements. You see, a massive drawback of his paradox flames is that they burn absolutely everything, making no distinction between friend or foe. Because of this, he opts for absolute precision. Hunok cloaks his spear in dark fire, knowing he just needs a tight space to seal his victory. With one clean swing, he triggers a devastating explosion of fire, hitting the beast dead on and completely scorching its flesh. And trust me, this is only the beginning of the real show. Things are about to get wild. Taking a slow breath, he focuses inward, feeling all the energy he gathered earlier flowing smoothly through his veins. With his magic pathways feeling stronger and cleaner, he realizes his body is handling the power way better than expected, giving him flawless command over his elements. Screaming in agony, the charred monster uses its remaining strength to howl for backup. In moments, a swarm of bat monsters swoops down, completely encircling him. But Hunok doesn't even blink, knowing damn well that raw numbers mean absolutely nothing at his level of power. Suddenly, he whips up a swirling vortex of fire, and the massive heatwave instantly vaporizes every single beast that dares to get close. Out of nowhere, a high-speed shadow lunges and strikes. Hunok reacts instantly, blocking the blow with his spear. Taking a closer look, he realizes this is definitely no ordinary minion. It is a winged, bat-like creature, but with a human shape, and more shockingly, it can talk and strategize. He notes that it only struck the moment his shield of fire died down, proving this opponent has the brains to wait for an opening. This monster's dark energy level is clearly way higher, and it snaps back with pure venom, swearing he will not leave this cave alive. Yet Hunok stays perfectly calm, realizing this massive surge of magic is the key to activating his ultimate skill. He charges forward, unleashing a spear strike so incredibly heavy that it nearly snaps the monster's weapon right in two. Then he activates his spear's special 2-orbit ability. The second strike triggers like a ghost of the first, tearing through the weapon and impaling the demon's chest. This skill leaves a bright blue trail that perfectly mimics his first move, repeating the devastating pierce over and over. While simple on paper, it is incredibly deadly since it multiplies the impact of that initial thrust tenfold. Even if an opponent somehow manages to dodge his main attack, they are still forced to face the phantom strike following right behind. And that's exactly how we end this. The monster dodges the first thrust, only for the ghost echo to blow up right in its face. Right then, the fight was already over, and trust me, you're about to see how several beams of blinding light completely disintegrate the monster back into human form. Shortly after, the beast condensed into a glowing reward box. Hyun popped it open, thoroughly impressed by the loot, while the situation outside the rift was rapidly turning into an absolute nightmare. Back in the control room, total despair took over. Scattered hunter squads were getting ambushed by massive, overpowered beasts, and nobody had a single clue what to do. The chief quickly realized they would need nothing short of a literal miracle to survive this chaotic mess. Just then, a staff member shouted that a crucial update had finally come from Yu Chan, who had entered the dangerous rift. Wasting no time at all, they threw his message onto the main monitor. He bluntly stated he had already neutralized the Alpha Corrosion Core. This single update changed the entire game. The chief knew instantly this was the exact miracle they had been praying for. Meanwhile, far from the chaos, our hero quietly looked up at the night sky. breathing in the fresh air after his hard-fought victory. Elsewhere in the rift, Sangha kept up the grind, summoning devastating lightning strikes to vaporize any monster in her path. Watch closely, even with her insane power, she was hitting her limit. Her hands shook from the non-stop electrical backlash, realizing there were just too many enemies to handle. To make matters worse, Yu-chan was missing, dialing the tension up to 100. Next to her, Min-jae was clearly running on empty, genuinely wondering if they would ever make it out of this nightmare alive. Sangha saw he was pushing past his breaking point, just like she was, leaving her unsure how much longer they could hold out. As another monster lunged, she tried to raise her guard, but her exhausted body refused to move. Her legs buckled, sending her crashing to the ground. But before the monsters could strike, the entire horde suddenly vanished into thin air. By the next morning back on Gyundo Island, our hero looked around the assembly area and saw tons of wounded hunters, realizing the monsters must have gone absolutely berserk the second he left the inner core zone. While he watched, members of Team 8 started whispering to each other, wondering if Yu-chan had actually pulled off the impossible and cleared the entire rift all by himself. But our protagonist brushed past the rumors, heading straight over to check on Min-jae and Sangha. When Min-jae got his text, his jaw dropped. He literally couldn't wrap his head around the idea of a single hunter soloing a high-level rift. In his reply, our hero dramatically explained that it wasn't his body guiding him to save everyone, but his pure, caring heart. And honestly, you and I both know that maintaining a clean reputation is the ultimate survival skill. He casually added that if he'd known the rift's location earlier, he would have wrapped it up before yesterday's sunset. Moments later, a suited man approached, introducing himself as Young-tae. He explained he was with the Operating Corporation of Korea, specifically the 3rd Northern Branch of Young-chan, asking if he had a moment because the mayor wanted to speak with him. Arriving at the massive luxury estate, our hero found it pretty funny, thinking these powerful old guys really love making everyone travel out to them. Still, he figured a massive reward was waiting for his efforts, so he decided to use this perfect opportunity to negotiate for some seriously heavy compensation. Right then, a man named Lee Pil-woo greeted him, offering to guide him through the massive mansion. As they walked, the guide explained that the mayor was incredibly excited to finally meet him, especially since the official morning report from Gyeongchan had completely blindsided the entire administration. It was such a shock that the mayor cleared his entire schedule just to secure this face-to-face meeting. Our hero shrugged it off, saying it really was not that big of a deal. But his guide quickly disagreed with him, insisting that single-handedly clearing a Class 3 rift was an absolutely legendary achievement, something that had not been seen since the era of the Great Pioneer. Hearing this, our MC realized someone had actually pulled off this crazy feat before, concluding that the pioneer was the real monster here, not him. Moments later, they arrived at the Incheon mayor's luxurious office. The mayor politely apologized for the sudden summons, warmly inviting our protagonist to sit down while ordering some fresh coffee. He went on to praise his incredible accomplishment, saying he did a major service for the nation, explaining that Gyundo Island had always been a massive headache for the city of Incheon because they always knew it had to be cleared, but a tight budget made it impossible to hire a top-tier guild to handle it. Our hero bluntly tells him to just be glad it's resolved cheaply, and trust me, you're going to want to see how this negotiation unfolds next. Let's dive in as they discuss Yu Chan-so's first mission, and it was amazing that a natural genius started right here in Incheon, leaving the proud mayor feeling completely honored by it. The praise was so ridiculously over the top that it caught Hun-ok off guard, making him choke on his coffee. Still, the mayor kept praising Korea as the safest nation on Earth, highlighting Incheon as a key hub, thanks to its incredible infrastructure, especially its massive airport, which handled massive shipments. Listening to this, Hun-ok suddenly remembered the very man who had dragged him into this world. Back then, Jung-tae had asked Yu Chan-so why he chose the hunter life. His answer was instant and completely honest. If chaos is breaking out and causing problems everywhere, then someone just has to step up and handle it. Jung-tae laughed, saying that with his insane power and mindset, he would definitely become famous. Elite hunters were basically superstars. They got massive commercial deals and non-stop television appearances. Hearing that, Hun-ok admitted he was worried about losing himself to all that fame. Jung-tae honestly agreed, admitting that tons of promising rookies ended up getting completely swept away by the hype and praise, forgetting their actual duty. But he argued it was almost natural, especially since the terrifying corrosion zones filled with monsters were always lurking nearby. Now watch closely. Korea was considered the only safe haven, meaning it was no fluke they called this land the last sanctuary on Earth. Hun-ok scoffed, noting that even that safety was driven by corporate greed, proving he already saw right through the system. Jung-tae countered that what Honoke accomplished was legendary, and that desperate people would soon look up to him as a savior. He just hoped he would keep playing that heroic role. Hearing this fake flattery, Yu Chanso wondered how far they would push since they weren't even trying to hide their real motives. Too bad for them. He wasn't someone who could be bought. Having survived absolute hell and lived through worst-case scenarios, he was impossible to manipulate. So, he looked them dead in the eye and demanded a massive reward that matched all their big promises. He even threw major shade, offering to help a struggling mayor with rock-bottom approval ratings win his next election. You see his reaction, right? The mayor just says he is well-informed. Honoke shrugged, saying anyone can search a phone and find out the mayor's term is ending with absolutely terrible re-election forecasts. The mayor chuckled at his bluntness before finally dropping the act and explaining the real motive behind this meeting. He revealed that for Yu Chanso to join the commission, he absolutely needed official approval from Incheon City Hall. Hearing this, Yu Chanso realized things were not as simple as they looked. This permission was mandatory for a rookie. If he played ball, they would paint him as a brilliant local prodigy discovered by Incheon. If he refused, the mayor would still use his name for cheap political promotion. At the end of the day, they were just trying to exploit his rising star power. To seal the deal, the mayor promised his elite corporate connections could open massive doors for him, even teasing a major commercial. He brought up a famous coffee brand whose current model's contract was expiring, hinting that Yu Chanso could easily become the hot new face of their brand. That was the last straw. Yu Chanso slammed his mug down, furious that this politician thought he could be bought so cheaply. He snapped that, according to the news, the world desperately needed a hero to lift the heavy atmosphere, but he was never going to sell his soul for some cheap endorsements. He declared that by simply climbing the hunter ranks, he would naturally earn all of that anyway. The mayor, desperate, insisted, promising highly paid, totally safe missions picked just for him. But Yu Chanso rejected it outright, calling the whole offer utterly boring, mockingly telling the mayor to just go ahead and renew that coffee model's contract instead. Deep inside a dark tunnel, a sinister hooded figure muttered that the Go Island test was an absolute failure. His minion quickly added that they still gained vital data footage of the powerful hunter who shut down the rift. Intrigued, the hooded leader whispered Yu Chanso's name, noting that this rookie was becoming quite the dangerous threat. Soon, the first of the month arrived, the exact day the entire country glued their eyes to the massive ranking updates. Usually, these charts barely shifted, serving as nothing more than casual entertainment for the masses. But this time, everything changes. As the president and leaders like Lee Nguyen watch closely, you and I are about to witness a historic update. Ready for a crazy twist? Yu Chansok just blasted straight into the global top 10. This elite leaderboard still features legends like Lee Yun, famous for his insane efficiency, and Kim Cha-hoon, sitting in 5th place. Cho Yor-yum holds 3rd, with Jung Ta-sok in 2nd. At the absolute peak, number 1 stays undefeated. But as Yu Chansok makes his grand entrance, everyone is losing it over him, breaking the speed record for entering the world rankings. I mean, an experienced hunter soloing a grade 3 rift is barely news these days. But a fresh rookie clearing one all by himself? That is absolutely unheard of. Naturally, the press conference is completely packed, with reporters throwing a million questions at him, dying to know his background and if he really pulled off this crazy feat without any help. Surrounded by cameras, Yu Chansok feels like he is being grilled on some high-stakes game show. But he stays totally cool, declaring he is on a tight schedule and will take only one final question. A reporter asks him to share his mindset or leave a bold message about his future goals. Skipping the usual boring cliches, he refuses to give the standard line about just doing his best. Now pay attention, because he only promises real results. Sometime later, riding in a helicopter, Yu Chansok stares down at the giant crater where Gansol Prison used to stand. An older man beside him remarks that while this wreckage is terrifying, similar ruins are now scattered all over the globe. Ever since these deadly corrosion rifts started popping up, countless nations have totally lost the power to keep the peace. Hearing this, Yu Chansok asks if every nation that failed to contain the rifts ended up this way. The answer is brutal. Yes, entire capital cities were completely wiped off the map once rifts opened up. As they fly closer to the impact zone, the sheer scale of the destruction becomes clear. That is when the old man introduces the concept of the Great Eight, the 8 deadliest rifts on Earth, with one of those nightmares sitting right beneath where Gansol Prison used to be. He explains that this specific rift ruptured out of nowhere 13 years ago, swallowing the center of the city in a massive, expanding circle. A handful of survivors managed to cling to life initially, but as the region rapidly decayed into a toxic corrosion zone, they were swallowed up with absolutely zero hope of escape. In just a few short days, the bustling metropolis was completely gone. Surprisingly, despite these massive disasters, the global balance of power between countries didn't shift all that much, but on the inside, their governments became incredibly fragile. Yu Chan-sok finds the history lesson interesting, but still has no clue why he was brought up here. But watch closely here, is where the plot thickens. Yoon Sung-kyung, from the powerful Taebaek Guild, had been hunting for him, furious that Yu Chan-sok refused to sign with them. Hearing that name, our main character immediately remembers the massive thug who tried to flex on him earlier. The association president reveals that the thug tried tracking his location, but since his records are strictly classified, they got nothing. Even so, he offers a direct warning. The Taebaek Guild operates on pure survival of the fittest, meaning they will absolutely use brutal force to make him fall in line. Our hero realizes this could get ugly fast, since taking down a massive guild through pure raw power is no easy task. The president studies his reaction, noting that he clearly prefers flying solo. Since he has zero interest in joining a guild, the president offers him a smart alternative. To keep those bullies off his back, he needs to raise his status and authority. The easiest way? Accepting backing straight from the president himself. With a knowing smile, he slides over a mysterious brown envelope. Yu Chan-sok knows there is no such thing as a free lunch, and asks for the catch. The old man claims he just wants history to show he supported a rising legend on his journey. Mulling it over, Yu Chan-sok realizes this deal is actually pretty solid. It is easy to handle, and gives his reputation a massive boost. But first, he wants to know exactly what the job is. The job is escorting a cargo ship from Busan to Nanning. Thanks to active corrosion zones, moving essential supplies has become a complete nightmare. But checking out the shipping manifest, Yu Chan-sok is completely left scratching his head. The cargo has high-end luxury watches, delicate porcelain, expensive liquor, and even a sports car. This is definitely not survival gear, making him realize that the definition of basic necessities has changed a whole lot over the last 20 years. And trust me, you and I know exactly who those elites are. Alright, let's jump right into this. Chan-sok couldn't comprehend why anyone cared about politics when the entire government was literally collapsing. The president explained that while global superpowers were crumbling under the weight of these rifts, international diplomacy still mattered, and keeping solid ties with nations like China was absolutely critical. Despite hearing all that, Chan-sok was blunt and flatly refused the mission. He made it clear he had zero interest in high-level games and immediately started packing up to walk out. The president argued that the nation's survival was at stake, but the stubborn hunter refused to budge. To Chan-sok, getting tangled in state-level politics as a single independent hunter was just a massive mistake. The president scoffed, warning him that all this sudden fame was going to his head as a rookie hunter. Completely unbothered, Chan-sok tossed the top-secret documents straight out of the helicopter, thanked him for the lift, and left. Right after saying that, he leaped out of the chopper without a second thought. The president could only sigh about how complicated kids are today. Hours later, Chan-sok dragged himself onto the docks of Incheon, totally wiped out after an insane swim. He muttered to himself that he genuinely thought he was going to drown out there. A dock worker taking a break just stared at him, saying he had no idea what happened, but the kid had clearly survived a nightmare. Chan-sok offered a quiet thank you. Catching his breath, he realized his absolute highest priority right now was growing far more powerful. Watch closely now, he decides to target the absolute deadliest, high-risk missions, the brutal ones that nobody else dared to touch, so no one could ever control him again. With his mind made up, he selected a highly dangerous Grade 2 rift that seemed like the perfect test. It was exactly what he needed. Then, on September 3rd, giant shrimp season kicked off. A fleet of fishermen headed out into the ocean, but the waters felt eerily quiet. Something was very wrong. Horrific monsters emerged near Tsushima Island and began kidnapping the crew, showing a terrifying, highly calculated level of intelligence. One lucky survivor escaped, reporting that the missing fishermen were still alive, held hostage deep inside the island. Chan-sok's mission was to rescue those hostages and destroy the core. The bounty was 55 million won, which would all be his if he cleared it solo. Plus, taking down another gate entirely by himself would skyrocket his reputation to the heavens. But this was no walk in the park. Grade 3 monsters hit like military tanks, but Grade 2 beasts? They are walking, breathing natural disasters. As for a Grade 1 rift? That requires an entire nation to mobilize. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Going solo is suicide. So he realizes he needs a powerful ally. Suddenly, a certain face came to mind. Cut to a boat slicing through waves toward the island, and sitting next to him is Han Sang-ah, looking around nervously and asking when they will finally arrive. Chan-suk shrugs, saying maybe an hour. Staring at his gear, she asks why he only wears armor on a single shoulder, wondering if it is just for show, and where on earth he bought it. He shoots back, asking if she ever stops talking, before explaining that he salvaged it from a trash dealer. When she complains that her sponsor gave her nothing, Chan-suk replies that it makes sense since she is still a total rookie. He is already a legend for soloing a grade 3 rift, so he tells her to stop crying, get over it, and start training harder if she wants to catch up. Just a few days back, she had received an unexpected call from him, inviting her to tag along on this raid. It was a terrifying grade 2 rift, and she was hesitating since she nearly lost her life in a grade 3. But he reminded her of her own promise to push past her limits and become truly powerful. He promised to mentor her, showing her the path to becoming an absolute monster in battle. Driven by her desire to grow, Sang-ah agreed to dive in. Back in the present, the ship's siren suddenly blares out a loud warning. Hostiles detected. Out on the horizon, several ghostly phantom ships begin to close in on them. 5 phantom vessels are heading their way. Chan-suk narrows his eyes, wondering how on earth these ships even materialized out here. Grimacing, he asks Sang-ah if she has any trick to get them onto those decks fast. In response, she silently begins to hover, demonstrating her incredible ability to glide through the air. He is totally stunned, demanding to know if she could always fly, but she just brushes it off as a basic skill any high ranker can do. Moments later, she's carrying Chan-suk through the sky, completely ignoring the painful bump swelling up on her head from their earlier training clash. Trust me, you're going to love this duo. He's crying about water splashing because he can't float, totally relying on her to get there. Alright, you and I are about to see Chan-suk sense something strange, a massive spike in mana. Squinting through the gloom, he spots a silhouette that almost looks human, but the unnatural way it moves proves otherwise. Without missing a beat, he leaps straight onto the zombie-infested ship. As the horde swarms him, Chan-suk unleashes blindingly fast spear strikes, creating a brutal flurry that completely shreds the fragile bodies of his enemies. It might be a rank 2 rift, but these weak undead are nothing special, meaning even Sangha should easily handle them. Out of nowhere, a massive lightning bolt tears the ship in half, forcing Chan-suk to jump back. He warns Sangha that she is wasting way too much mana and won't survive long at this rate. He tells her to stop burning through her energy, reminding her that true strength is all about control and efficiency. Sangha immediately adjusts her combat style, carefully rationing her energy while Chan-suk keeps coaching her to cut back her power output. But mid-fight, she remembers how being weak felt like drowning in cold, endless darkness, a nightmare she refuses to ever live again. She must get stronger. Fueled by that drive, she unleashes a concentrated bolt, clean-cutting another zombie in half. Watch closely, because Sangha is determined to do whatever it takes to evolve, even if she has to dive headfirst into absolute hell. Once she clears the deck, Chan-suk approaches her, having already wiped out the remaining enemy ships all by himself. She admits she did okay, though it could have been cleaner, before thanking him for his guidance. When she says she is learning a ton, he shrugs it off, joking that some fools in this world wouldn't understand even if he drew them a map. Sangha confesses that this is actually the first time anyone has ever given her real, honest advice. Chan-suk finds that bizarre, since academies exist for teaching. She explains that because she always learned too fast, others just found her incredibly annoying and ignored her. He smirks, teasingly asking if she thinks his advice will somehow make her stronger than him. She proudly claims she already surpassed all her former mentors, but Chan-suk gives her a smug, sideways look, making it clear that won't happen here. His arrogant reply totally irritates her. Arriving at the island, the support staff greets them, wishing the duo luck on their mission. Chan-suk notes that survivors reported the hostages are trapped inside a temple. But Sangha points out there are actually 2 temples here, Gaijin and Atazumi, with Chan-suk adding that based on the distance, Gaijin is closest, reachable in a couple of hours. But Chan-suk knows the real challenge isn't getting in, it's actually escaping. The report says there are 15 hostages. Dragging that many people back, especially if they are wounded, will be a nightmare. Worse yet, he can feel a highly hostile mana radiating through the entire environment, making his skin feel slightly numb. He knows that the moment they try to leave, an army of corrosion beasts will hunt them down. Trust me, they're going to need a vehicle to escape this hell. Securing an old van, Chan-suk asks if she can drive, and she confidently says yes. Cut to Sangha, flooring it at full speed with a massive horde of undead hot on their tail. Chansik immediately regrets asking, yelling that she drives like brakes are just a useless decoration. Sangha snaps back, telling him to drive if he hates it so much, but he quickly shuts that idea down. Instead, he climbs onto the roof, shouting that even with her crazy driving, she is still better than him because his license expired over 20 years ago, and he is way more useful fighting anyway. Tying his spear to a rope around his waist, he begins hurling it into the crowd, skewering monsters and pulling it back. He casually jokes about what happens if the rope breaks, but his focus shifts as zombies start bursting from the left bushes, throwing themselves at the van. Sensing the immediate danger, Sangha reacts instantly, pulling off a wild drift that sends the undead flying, while making a joke out of it. This makes Chansik seriously consider taking the wheel himself, because his life is flashing before his eyes up there. Reaching the temple at last, she drives right up the stone stairs, crushing absolute obstacles and scattering debris everywhere. Clearing the entrance arch, Chansik leaps down and slams his spear into the ground, unleashing the legendary flames of Paradox. He lets the friction fanning the flames create a massive fire barrier that incinerates the beasts pursuing them. Stepping inside the temple, they find the survivors tied tightly to a wooden post. Sangha introduces herself, but as we leave off, a panicked hostage is trying to warn them of something. "All right, you and I are jumping right into a desperate rescue," where she tries to calm him, but he begs her to run. That is when San notices the massive threat creeping up right behind her way too late. But Uchinoke leaps in, blocking a lethal samurai strike. He yells at her to throw the survivors into the van while he handles this monster alone. This clash is brutal. The enemy samurai is insanely fast and packing serious power. Yuch-chan so struggles here. Wielding a spear against a katana in close combat means he desperately needs some space. So Sangha helps out in the most chaotic way possible, slamming the samurai with the van straight into a temple wall. Still, Yuchan-sok tells her that once they survive this, she needs to promise to never, ever drive again. She totally brushes him off, shouting at him to just get in the vehicle already. With the hostages secured in the back, she hits the gas, and their wild escape begins. But of course, the road back is way worse. Pay attention here because the zombies are getting hyper-aggressive, and Yu Chanok notices they are not dying after being run over. Seeing this, he asks to borrow Sangha's sword, but she fires back that asking a swordsman for their weapon is a massive insult. He instantly counters, telling her it is a choice between her pride or everyone's survival, leaving the final call to her. Sangha tosses it over, and holding both weapons, he mutters that he did not expect to go all out this early. 3 days earlier, when he opened his level 3 Rift reward box, he pulled out a special glove that absorbs raw energy straight from the air. Sure, for a low-tier Rift, it seemed like basic gear anyone could find. But for him, this was no ordinary energy booster. See, given the massive scale of his own reserves, this glove acts like a battery for 5 minutes of absolute destruction. Once activated, he draws in insane amounts of atmospheric energy, unleashing a storm of slashes so fast the screen goes blurry, completely shredding every single enemy and tree in his path. Fast forward, he directs Sang-A toward the port, speeding down the coastal highway with only a handful of persistent undead trailing behind. Their van is basically trashed, and Sang-A wonders where these monsters keep spawning from, suggesting they pull over and just clear them out once and for all. But Yuchanok just tells her to keep driving. Moments later, they cross a strange boundary that stops the horde dead in their tracks. Now, you might be wondering why they froze. Sangha suspects it has everything to do with that weird symbol on the ground. Turns out, Yuchi drew it himself, a geometric defense spell designed to keep monsters away. He breaks it down, prompting her to ask where he learned such magic, but he shrugs it off. Even with a full explanation, she could never grasp it, because secretly, he brought it from another world. Stepping out of the vehicle, he tosses her a compliment, saying her driving is actually improving. Sangha asks if this barrier blocks everything, but he warns her it only stops the weaker ones, since truly strong monsters will smash right through. And that is exactly what happens. That battered samurai from earlier steps right through the ward, still hunting his target. Sangha instantly feels his chilling aura. Feeling his deadly gaze locked onto her, she realizes he possesses the mythical mind's eye, a legendary sixth sense that allows a warrior to predict any incoming strike. It is a state even grandmasters fail to reach, leaving her baffled at how a brainless zombie acquired it. As she shakes with fear, Yuchan-sok places a calm hand on her shoulder, telling her to relax. He calls the samurai's trick a cheap illusion, urging her to watch closely as he shows her how to break it. The undead warrior cracks his bones into a lethal stance while Sangha panics, wondering why Yu-chan is stepping forward alone. He calmly explains that this legendary mind's eye is just muscle memory, built from surviving 1,000 battles. It is a basic survival reflex, reacting unconsciously to pure danger, fear, and incoming strikes. Trying to fake it with raw bloodlust is just sad and totally amateur. He continues to list off these concepts: the mind's eye, the heart, the sword itself, ultimate self-awareness, and the absolute unity of weapon and wielder, which martial artists call the high realms. With one flick of his spear, he obliterates the foe, proving to you and me that these legendary realms are nothing special. Alright, you and I are about to watch this epic battle draw to a close. Yu-chan realized what people call enlightenment is actually terrifying, because clinging to labels only ends up trapping them in their own limits. To him, real survival on the battlefield has no name, a truth he learned after making endless sacrifices to escape that exact trap. Yu-chan noted the enemy survived the devastating blast of Song's van, yet they still relied heavily on their mind's eye as a trump card. Meanwhile, Song began to reflect on what she had actually achieved during that brutal mission. Despite her own talent, Yu-chan was the one who solved everything, proving the gap in their power was absolutely massive. Driven by her own goals, she decided to ask Yu-chan for a major favor, begging him to truly teach her. He responded simply, asking if he was not already doing exactly that. She explained that simple tips were not enough, making it clear she wanted him to become her true master on this path. She admitted she was ridiculously weak compared to him, which was exactly why she needed to learn as fast as possible. When Yu-chan asked why, she revealed her ultimate goal: to destroy the Shaddai Club with her own 2 hands. In this world, the 8 deadliest corrosion rifts are called the 8 Greats, and the Shaddai Club famously swallowed the entire Himalayas. Now, watch closely here, he asked. If all of this was for revenge. Sangha confirmed she was doing it for her family, making it clear she was not asking for a free favor, before handing him a business card from the KY Group, a massive company worth over 250 trillion owned by her family. When he asked if she came from a wealthy family, she explained the owner was her grandfather, but she had abandoned the family succession battle since it meant absolutely nothing to her. Still, Yu-chan knew that becoming a true hunter would drag her into family drama, making her look like a major threat to the heirs. Knowing she did not hand over that card by accident, he asked her directly what she wanted in return. Sangha wanted power, and in exchange, she offered rare, hard-to-find elixirs that were never sold to the public. She pointed out that he also wanted to get stronger, and with her unlimited resources, he could easily reach whatever power realm he desired. Yu-chan knew she would never believe the truth that he had already reached his dream realm a long time ago, and everything he was doing now was simply to gather enough strength to return home. Even so, he shook her hand and turned down the massive reward, promising to ask for something much simpler down the road. For now, the absolute priority was getting the squad in the van to a hospital. At the clinic, the doctor checked on the 7 patients and warned that their recovery would take at least a few weeks. He promised to let them know the moment the patients finally regained consciousness, and told them they should get some rest. But get this, Yu-chan wanted to start training right then and there, completely catching Song off guard since they just finished a brutal mission. Soon, they headed out to a completely isolated spot, far away from any people or buildings. Before they began, Yu-chan asked her straight up if she could actually dodge if he attacked with full power. Song admitted she probably could not, knowing the massive gap between them. But he disagreed, saying she could if she used all her senses. He told her to watch closely, listen carefully, and feel her surroundings. She had to master her instincts, fighting with conscious control rather than just reacting blindly. Then, to test her progress, he instantly vanished right before her eyes. Sangha did not even have time to react or choose a sense before Yu-chan's spear was already pressed against her throat, pointing out her mistake. He warned she was way too slow, saying in real combat, instincts must react long before the mind can even think. Our senses exist to automatically trigger when danger strikes. And now it was time to put that theory to the test. Later, while police officers rushed around trying to find the source, the entire area began to shake. When they reached the hospital courtyard, they realized it was just a clash between the 2 powerful hunters. Yu-chan's brutal spear strikes were absolutely tearing the surrounding courtyard to pieces. Though Sangha blocked with her katana, the pressure was intense. Just when she tried to counter, a cop interrupted with news that the survivors were finally awake. Stick around, because you and I are about to see what happens next. Stick with me. Sangha was practically collapsing from pure exhaustion. Meanwhile, Yu-chan so casually asked if she was awake, noting she had learned to block his fast strikes surprisingly well. Wrapping up their first training session, Sangha was stunned to realize that was only the beginning. Meanwhile, an emaciated survivor hooked up to an IV claimed that unless he was completely losing his mind, a truck had taken some hostages before rescue teams arrived. It turned out these kidnappers were actual humans working hand in hand with the monsters, and for some crazy reason, the monsters did not attack, but actually helped them instead. He explained that the zombies were literally carrying the helpless hostages to the truck, which finally made Yu Chun-suk realize why they had only found 7 people. He added that it was a blessing the survivor escaped, because thanks to his info, they could save the rest. But the man replied he did not escape, revealing they had actually let him go. Yu Chun-suk asked if that was true, admitting he had already sensed something off about this whole situation, since a normal civilian escaping a zombie-infested outpost made absolutely no sense unless someone had allowed it. This strongly suggested that this man was no ordinary survivor. Now, pay attention here. Sangha guessed it was a trap, though she admitted that it made 0 sense. Yu Chun-suk dismissed it as a cheap, dirty trick, calling the enemies behind it incredibly bold. Sangha wondered if he was angry at being underestimated, or if something else was bothering him. Maybe he hated that they used living humans as bait. Shaking it off, Yu Chun-suk asked the survivor for more info. The man nodded, mentioning he caught a glimpse of the leader who stepped out of that truck, the one who controlled the zombies, and that this person had a pet cat. Later at the airport, Sangha mentioned she just looked up online that this airport's official mascot is actually a cat. Yu Chun-suk asked how she even got service, and she sarcastically shot back, asking if his phone was just for decoration. He shot back that unlike her wealthy self, normal people had to pay for mobile data, and it was pretty expensive. She laughed, saying he sounded like he lived in the 2000s because nowadays data is super cheap. Still, Sangha could not sense anyone nearby and suggested they head back to the sanctuary instead. But wait, watch this. Yu-chan so stopped her because he already spotted 2 people in the distance. One of them was standing there with a face full of metal piercings, making Yu-chan so mockingly ask if he had played too much with a nail gun. But despite his jokes, he immediately realized that the woman standing beside him was dangerous. She introduced herself as Kim Ji-on, declaring her mission was to capture the 2 of them alive. She grabbed the body of a half-dead man lying on the ground, saying that showing them was much better than explaining. She tossed the body right into a corrosion rift. When the corpse emerged, it had instantly transformed into a terrifying zombie creature. Kim Ji-hyun casually called it a weak monster since the human body itself was frail, instantly crushing the creature with a single kick. Sangha asked if they planned to do the same thing to them, but she replied she could not waste useful people on simple experiments since they did not give good results, making it clear that the captured hostages were not being held for ransom, but were treated as mere test subjects. Showing 0 remorse, Kim Ji-on stated she was ordered to explain their grand plan. She began explaining that they were descendants of Dan, united by one glorious purpose, keeping South Korea strong and dominant so that no other nation could ever oppose them. To prove her point, she unleashed a massive shockwave, sending cars and heavy rocks flying into the air, proving that Korea needed to become an absolute superpower. During this display, she kicked a car right at them, but Yu Chun-suk smashed it to pieces mid-air, coolly replying that the country already had more than enough power. But she aggressively insisted it was not enough, declaring they would lift the nation to a tier where nobody would ever dare look down on them, turning Korea into an unshakable power. She told them to look back at the long history of the Korean peninsula, remembering how stronger nations constantly robbed their wealth, forcing them to bow to massive empires like China and Japan, and declared that now was the time to repay all those years of humiliation. Listening quietly, Yu Chun-suk realized she was likely a top-tier taekwondo fighter. But trust me, he quickly realized she was way faster than he had ever imagined. She managed to land a clean kick, sending him flying backward. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into this crazy fight. He gets up, dazed, but realizes he can actually handle her speed. Meanwhile, he starts to understand her logic. If these dimensional rifts suddenly disappear, Korea's global standing would completely collapse, since so much of their power comes directly from hunters. But even with that in mind, she makes it clear she is no hero. Chun-suk snaps back, pointing out that innocent people are dying every single day. Shouldn't she reconsider her priorities? But she just laughs it off, claiming he is completely clueless. She reveals there is already a way to control the rifts. This makes him pause, because if that is true, it changes everything. Still, he doubts her. If controlling these chaotic rifts was actually possible, why was the world in such absolute ruin? Curious, he plays along and asks just how much control they actually have. Her answer is super vague, just enough to manage them, which only fuels his suspicion. To Chansuk, she sounds like all the others. People who speak beautifully and sound convincing, but never show real results. Let's be real to him, they are just cheap frauds pretending to be heroes. That insult snaps Kim Ji-hoon's temper, and she smashes the ground with a savage kick. Chansuk knows he is playing with fire, but he is actually stalling on purpose to charge up his combat glove. The catch? The charge is far from complete, and he cannot unleash his paradox flames just yet. So, his only real option is a battle of attrition. But neither side expected Sangha to suddenly jump in. She strikes instantly, slicing off a few strands of Kim Ji-hoon's hair as she barely dodges the blow. Shocked, she stares at her. Does this girl really have no fear of death? But Sangha is not backing down. She is ready. Chansuk warns her that she cannot defeat Kim Ji-hoon alone, but Sangha replies she saw his glove and knows he needs time. She asks exactly how much time he needs. His response? Just 5 minutes. Without hesitating, she downs an elixir and starts channeling massive electrical energy through her entire body. Chansuk worries about the dangerous dose she just took, warning her about the risk of a fatal overload, but she insists there is no other choice in an emergency. Realizing she is right, he agrees to the plan. In 5 minutes, he will take over. Sangha begs him to win. Now, watch closely. A massive storm erupts over the airport, turning everything into total chaos. Kim Ji-hoon taunts her, telling her to watch her aim before she ends up killing her own friend. Sangha answers with pure violence, sending a massive electric shock straight through her enemy's entire body. But even that barely leaves a scratch. Kim Ji-hoon counters with a brutal spinning kick, forcing Chansuk to rush in and catch Sangha at the last second. Standing tall, Chansuk looks his enemy dead in the eye. Ready to die? Kim Ji-hoon is stunned by his sudden, explosive mana, suspecting he was hiding his real strength this entire time. But Chansuk acts like it is nothing, explaining he is using the same principle as her piercings. She is shocked. How does he know her secret? Chansuk laughs, telling her anyone could see the massive pool of refined mana leaking from her body. And then, he reveals he is using that wasted mana to trigger his own unique ability. Kim Ji-hoon snaps that it is impossible. There is no way to absorb mana like that. But before she can even blink, he is already behind her. With no explanation, he coldly tells her she does not need to understand, because she is going to die right here. Instantly ending the fight, he unleashes the blue trajectory in a savage 16-hit combo. After that, Kim Ji-hoon can barely breathe. Her body feels like it is burning from the inside, her lungs failing as her heartbeat slowly fades. Chansuk tells her to give up, saying that fighting on will only make her suffer. Her muscles are already practically burned to ash. Desperate, Kim Ji-hoon cries out to her captain. Suddenly, a dense sphere of mana strikes Chansuk straight in the chest. Though he stays on his feet, he tries to process what just hit him. As the hidden archer prepares to shoot again, aiming right for his wrist, Chansuk realizes this attacker is incredibly fast and precise. He respects those killer instincts, but wonders who this mystery sniper actually is. An archer in this day and age? That is wild. Trust me, you and I are about to see if this is the real captain. Alright, you and I are jumping right into an insane clash, because this newcomer is easily 2 or 3 times stronger than anyone we have seen so far. Standing his ground firmly, the archer mocked Chansuk, saying his courage made it look like he did not fear death at all. Chansuk fired back, knowing that if this guy wanted a corpse, he would be dead already. This archer had other plans besides starting a bloody fight. It was all about his unique flames. With a simple flick of Chansuk's fingers, the dark fire around Kim Ji-hoon flared up, making her scream in agony. Fading fast, she desperately begged for help. She was pushed to her absolute limit. The archer coldly ordered him to put out those flames now, warning him there would not be a second chance. Even under that pressure, Chansuk knew that if he had his way, Kim Ji-hoon would already be 6 feet under. But he could tell that the captain would never let that happen. The archer was actively keeping her alive, using his own life force, pumping his energy into her to shield someone incredibly important, treating her almost like a sister. Recalling that terrifying sniper shot, Chansuk realized that if it had targeted his skull, he would be a goner. Yet the archer deliberately held back. Accepting this, Chanseo put out the black fire, leaving Kim Ji to collapse in exhaustion. The archer casually praised him for cooperating. Now, pay attention to this next move because the archer teleports to Kim Jun in a flash, showing off a terrifying level of speed. The archer glared, asking if he even realized what he had done. Her entire muscle structure was completely scorched, meaning she would likely spend the rest of her days paralyzed in a wheelchair, hooked up to life support machines. Still, he made one thing clear. He needed Chansuk breathing. but he did not care about keeping his limbs intact. Knocking another lethal arrow, he warned that he would gladly cripple him right now. Shanokok snapped back in pure rage, daring him to try because he would rather die than ever become someone else's puppet. Surprisingly, the archer lowered his bow, claiming he fully understood the hidden mechanics of those black flames. He admitted they were currently stuck in a tense stalemate, but he left a chilling warning. Back when the dimensional rifts first tore open across the world, nobody even dreamed of controlling them. Yet he succeeded, standing as the only human capable of mastering that power. And he promised that sooner or later, Chan would also fall right into his grasp. Once the dangerous archer vanished, Chansarch realized he had just encountered a monster he never wanted to face again. Beside him, Sang struggled to stand up, asking weakly if those terrorists were after his unique ability. He nodded, though he still had no idea what their master plan was. She pointed out they could have easily used her unconscious body as hostage bait, but Chans assumed they knew too much about her past. Saw doubted that, since ruthless terrorists usually do not care about history. Let's pause and think calmly, arguing that this shadow group had very precise goals. They might not even be enemies of the state, and could actually be receiving massive government support. Hearing this, Sangha hesitantly suggested that maybe they should leave that rift intact. Chansok agreed, saying they could easily pretend they saw absolutely nothing, even if he knew she was a terrible liar. Ultimately, he decided to worry about the fallout later. They were going to clear this rift today, no matter the cost. He instructed her to stay put, while he ventured inside, completely alone. Sangha asked if he would survive, and he honestly replied he would only find out down there, advising her to rest until his return. Stepping inside the Rank 2 Tsushima Rift, Chonio was met with a massive, grand, and imposing imperial palace. Touching the stone walls to analyze the layout, he realized that despite being built by the undead, this fortress was way too durable. Worse, a crushing surge of dark energy filled the entire air, making it physically painful for him to even breathe. He did not need to explore far to guess that the core was hiding right behind those massive doors. It was a dangerous mindset to have before a boss fight, but he knew that dropping his guard for a second, even for a millisecond, would cost him his life. Crossing the Grand Hall, he spotted a massive cauldron radiating a crazy amount of magic. It seemed to be the dungeon core, though it looked weird. Suddenly, a shadow lunged at him. A survivor suddenly grabbed his ankle, crying out for help because they could not move. Before he could react, a slimy tentacle whipped out of the cauldron, dragging the victim inside. Screams echoed for just seconds before the body completely dissolved in the boiling energy. Moments later, that same person rose up as a mindless zombie. And that is where we leave it. For now they are using humans as raw fuel, bringing back his worst memories of people burning to death. Stick with me, this gross scene literally makes his stomach churn. Disgusted, he realizes how sickening humans can be. Suddenly, a strange presence creeps up. An eerie specter materializes, calling him another sacrifice, but sensing this newcomer is different. The ghost senses Chinoki carries a warrior's spirit, revealing that he too was once an honorable, masterless samurai, a ronin. He demands Chansuke draw his weapon, eager to feed his spectral blade with fresh blood. Chansuke feels the crushing pressure around him, confirming this is definitely the power of a Rank 2 core. Sensing his surroundings, the pure intensity of the energy sends cold shives down his spine. He wonders if that hooded figure conquered this terrifying rift alone, utterly shocked that anyone could possess that kind of insane, godlike strength. Right then, the phantom tells him to keep his eyes on the blade. Still, Chanso realizes the hooded figure isn't even at peak level, meaning their actual leader is vastly more powerful. Before he can process that, he barely dodges a sudden, lethal sword slash from the phantom. Feeling the enemy's terrifying speed, Chansok hears the ghost boast about his long lifetime of battle experience. Chansok draws his spear, quickly trying to plan a basic strategy against this overpowered monster. His best bet is to end this in one clean strike. He lunges with everything he has, but pay attention here, because the phantom easily predicts and blocks the entire attack. This leaves Chanuk completely stunned, not just because his ultimate move failed, but because he couldn't even track the enemy's lightning-fast movements. The specter mocks him, saying true attacks are invisible, and honestly, everything happened in a literal blink of an eye. Chansoke tries to dodge the next strike but still gets grazed. Even though it's just a minor cut, it's brutally clear that he is nowhere near ready for this level of speed. The ghost actually commends him for surviving, noting that dodging those fatal strikes is impressive, but immediately unleashes a brutal barrage of cuts, daring him to block. The heavy strikes are just too fast. Chansok can't even react. He barely holds on, taking damage until he collapses to his knees, bleeding heavily. Still, leaning heavily on his spear, he forces himself up and ignites the paradox flames to heal. He knows he is playing his trump card way too early. Worse yet, the flames won't affect the ghost since he isn't alive, leaving our hero completely out of options. He keeps swinging anyway. Now, you and I both know this ghost is loving it, calling him a box of surprises and wanting to see his absolute limit. The relentless onslaught continues, leaving Chansuk increasingly battered with every single hit. Answering back is impossible. His body feels like lead, his vision goes blurry, and dizziness nearly knocks him out cold. Despite that, he constantly triggers his healing flames to stand tall, pushing his spear forward the second he spots an opening. For a brief, terrifying moment, it honestly feels like he blacked out completely. Yet, for some bizarre reason, the ghost holds back, giving Chansio precious seconds to heal up with his paradox flames. Suddenly, he finds himself right behind his opponent, thinking this is his golden opportunity to end the fight. But in a blink, the phantom teleports right behind him, cold-bloodedly whispering that he is simply too slow. The follow-up strike barely misses his skull, slicing his temple and drawing blood. Still, he reacts instantly, managing to blow the enemy back with raw force. The ghost just chuckles, noting the kid must have incredible luck to survive that. Furious, Chansuke realizes he is being spared on purpose, demanding to know why this monster is toy-playing with him instead of finishing the job. The specter, sighing, responds that he would have ended him instantly back when he was truly alive, but in his current form, he can't even remember his name. Losing his mortal memories has severely weakened his legendary sword techniques and raw combat strength. Due to those massive gaps in his memory, he was defeated and bound to this place. He describes how he was humiliated, treated like a wild dog chained by some magical collar. Hearing this, Chansuke finally understands the situation. While the physical form remains, the ghost's memories are gone, the exact opposite of our hero, who lost his body but kept all of his past knowledge. Chansuke quickly realizes that magical collar is likely a terrifying mind control ability used by their mysterious, unseen enemy to completely dominate others. The spectral swordsman laments that he has lost absolutely everything: his name, his memories, and even his original purpose for holding a sword. Only bitter resentment and sorrow remain inside his hollow soul. Suddenly, the phantom dissolves into thin air, consumed by eerie spectral fire. Instantly, a giant black eye manifests above, born from the cauldron's dark power, staring down at them like an ominous moon. The phantom merges into the shadows, and trust me, you and I are not ready for whatever danger comes next. Chanso could feel it. The swordsman's absolute rage was burning even hotter. But stick with me here, because this terrifying ghost had actually lost most of his combat skills. This meant a single, devastating strike was his only real shot at winning this fight. To win, he had to unleash everything without holding back. He instantly began flooding his entire body with those paradox flames, using their chaotic energy to heal his wounds and supercharge his physical strength. Staring at him, the phantom muttered that this was a truly bizarre ability. Those dark flames were clearly burning something far beyond physical matter. Chano agreed, explaining that his fire literally burns abstract concepts. It sounds like an absolute cheat code, but the reality is not that simple. The larger the concept he targeted, the more mana it drained, and the harder it became to control. That is exactly why he had been holding back, using his fire with extreme caution. He remembered fighting Kim Jun, where he had to restrain his power to avoid completely vaporizing her body. Back in his original world, that wouldn't even be an issue. But here, he needed absolute precision. But right now, there was absolutely no time to be holding anything back. Chanzuk decided to burn the durability of the whole room. Now watch closely, because he charges forward before the ghost even comprehends it. His speed exploded instantly, allowing him to bypass defenses and completely rip off one of the ghost's arms. Pressuring the enemy without mercy, he coldly told the phantom he could figure it out while getting beaten to a pulp. This confirmed his theory: the enemy definitely had limits, and that was all the opening he needed. At the exact same time, he wanted to test just how much his own physical body could endure. The specter suddenly realized the entire palace was rotting away as its physical durability was turned to ash. Desperate, the ghost shifted the battlefield outside, where they began trading incredibly violent, earth-shattering blows. But during their brutal clash, the enemy swordsman managed to shatter Chansoki's spear right in half. He then unleashed a massive slash that literally split the distant mountains. Yet, Chansok stood his ground, gripped his broken spear, and lunged forward like a blazing comet. Trailing blue energy and sonic echoes, he unleashed an absolutely relentless barrage of strikes. You and I can see the shock as his shadow body gets pierced by holes, making him admit he's never faced this. Not even in his past life had he seen such power. But before he could ask what Chinoki was, time ran out. Like a falling star, Chan Sok drove his broken spear straight through the enemy's chest, as flashing blue strikes repeatedly tore the specter apart. He tried desperately to regenerate and fight back, but his body simply could not keep up. Gradually, the dark shadows began to fade, exposing the sad remnants of a man with no name left, no memories, and absolutely no purpose. Yet, they kept clashing until both their bodies pushed past their absolute physical limits. In the middle of that final, violent clash, the black flames completely vaporized the palace. Chansok suddenly remembered a talk from his past life. He was asked what he would do against an absolutely unbeatable opponent. His answer back then was remarkably simple. When two fighters of equal strength clash, one must inevitably die. And that is exactly what played out here. After delivering the finishing blow, Chan Huk collapsed to his knees, completely drained, as the phantom melted under the sunlight. Yet, barely holding on to consciousness, he muttered that just as expected, he truly is the strongest. With the battle finally over, the shadows faded away, leaving a mysterious chest right where the specter had just stood. This gave Chansoke a wave of familiarity, since its exact mechanics were identical to those in his original world. Popping it open, he pulled out a unique spear with a massive blade and a short handle, looking like a glaive. Inspecting it closer, he realized he could extend the handle using his mana, making the weapon highly versatile for any fight. He noted that rift rewards usually scale with the number of players. Because of that, he briefly wondered if bringing Sangar along to farm extra loot would have been a better move. However, scanning the area once more, he spotted the ghost's legendary sword fully intact. Grabbing it as a gift for Sangao, he headed back to the ruined airport, where Sangao was currently knocked out asleep. She only woke up when he tossed the heavy sword right beside her. Rubbing her eyes, she realized what it was, and admitted she had never seen such a unique blade before. Choke told her he just stumbled across it, adding that judging by the monster who wielded it, it had to be top tier. Sun took a closer look at the weapon and confirmed it was indeed an exceptional sword. Thanking him, she grew curious, asking where he found it, if it came from the rift, and if he was actually okay. Brushing it off, he asked if she slept well, and that's where we leave it for now. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the madness, because just as he thought he could finally rest, Chan So collapsed face first onto the concrete. Sing Ah immediately ran over, realizing he had passed out, proving that in the end, he was still human. This showed the massive, terrifying gap between a rank 2 and rank 3 rift. It was simply immeasurable. So when news broke that Choke single-handedly cleared a rank 2 corrosion rift, the entire world went into absolute shock. This was not just another cool achievement. This was on a completely different level. Everyone wanted to know his identity. His face plastered giant screens, news channels, and front pages. There was literally no escaping the hype. He got hit with a massive wave of texts and notifications, making it impossible to filter out what actually mattered. The hype got so out of hand he could not even step outside, with crowds constantly surrounding his apartment building. That is when Jasu Jagon, from the prestigious Embargo Tower Secretariat, suddenly paid him a personal visit. Shan Sok thanked her for paying his hospital bills, but admitted he was quite surprised, since he had never even heard of the Embargo Tower. Jasu Jagon explained that they operate in the shadows, focusing on high-level information and communication tech, which keeps them completely off the public radar. She added that if he needed absolutely anything during his recovery, he just had to say the word. But Chanseo wanted answers, knowing this treatment was incredibly expensive. He cut straight to the chase. What did they want from him? Avoiding his question, "Now watch this," Jasu Jagan pulled out a cake, asking if he liked sweets, before pivoting to explain a shield generator that defends against deadly corrosion creatures. Chansok realized they wanted him to move this tech. She confirmed it, explaining it was a brand new prototype built in the United States. If this mission succeeded and the device went into mass production, it would completely change the game for regions where hunters cannot survive. We are talking about a massive mission that could literally save the human race. Chonio asked if this was some massive operation, and Jasu Jagan nodded, revealing that top hunters were joining. Even the famous Janabi Guild signed up, making him realize this project was way bigger than he first thought. The shield generator would travel by train, leaving Blighttalk all the way to its destination in the Netherlands. From there, a helicopter would fly it straight to the United Kingdom for its final round of testing. Chanso asked why the United Kingdom was the end point. Jasu Jagan explained that a massive power hub sits in Naples, Italy, ruling over most of Europe and even parts of North Africa. As of now, the United Kingdom is the only nation standing, kept safe by the surrounding ocean barriers. The rest of Europe has completely collapsed, with fallen governments and ruthless hunter warlords now controlling the ruins. So, alongside the prototype generator, they are also moving massive humanitarian aid requested by international groups. You and I both know what that means. Choke immediately asked if the train would be constantly attacked. Jasu Jagon nodded, confirming this would be suicide-level dangerous, before asking if he had ever traveled abroad before. He admitted he had not, and that this would be his very first trip to Europe, though he already expected things to get extremely rough. He then asked if she was coming along, and Jasu Jagan said yes. She explained that the embargo tower handles all data analysis, meaning she would be right there on the front lines with him. At least he would have one familiar face nearby. Chansok pointed out she was acting like he had already accepted. After looking at the cake, he finally laid out his one condition. He demanded that the hunter Sang-A join the team. He clarified, asking if they were referring to the same partner who joined him on Tsushima Island. He confirmed it, explaining that he made a promise to her and trusted her as a genuine friend. Even so, Jasu Jagon questioned if he really trusted her that much, since the final choice to invite her belonged to them, not him. But she thanked him, admitting that having Sang-A along actually worked in her favor too, wishing Chanchok a successful partnership. Fast forward, and they were already flying out of Korea. During the flight, he told the president it felt crazy using a whole helicopter just to pick up one guy, showing how clearing high-rank rifts changes everything. And that is where we leave it today, trust me. You and I are in for an insane ride next time. Alright, you and I are about to watch everyone's expectations flip into pure shock as the association goes completely out of their way to support him. Chansok is pretty relieved, knowing his reputation is finally backed up by cold, hard facts. This was solid proof that his skills would make surviving in this world a lot easier. But still, he wonders if the president already knows about those mysterious people who can control the rifts, and whether he would try to support them or shut them down. These thoughts keep spinning in his mind until he boards the helicopter and meets the rank 10 hunter, Lee Se-eun. She mentions that rumors about him are spreading fast, and he jokes that finding someone who doesn't know him is getting impossible. Seizing the moment, he asks where they are heading, and she explains that they are going to a military base to prepare for the massive embargo tower's mission. Chansok agrees it makes perfect sense, since literally every country on Earth would want to get their hands on a powerful shield generator. If this actually works, this is where things get tricky. A shield generator means less reliance on hunters, which Korea might not actually want. Moments later, he asks Se-eun if she has ever heard of a group called the Heirs of Dangun. She nods, describing them as an extreme nationalist terrorist group, and admits she is surprised he even knows they exist. Chansok explains that he crossed paths with their members during his previous mission on Tsushima Island. Se-eun adds that this group, made up entirely of Koreans, has been popping up all over the place, mostly to interfere whenever hunters try to clear active rifts. Chansok admits that he can actually understand what they are trying to protect, even if he does not fully agree with their extreme methods. Right then, Se-eun randomly hands him a sweet pumpkin candy, which completely confuses him, but she simply asks if he has ever traveled outside the country. He admits he has not, noting this is his first time going this far, and realizes she is already the second person to ask. Se-eun points out that this mission will likely change how he looks at everything, opening his eyes to the real world. Once they touch down at the military base, a high-stakes briefing begins with all the key players gathered. Everyone gets their files as Superintendent Han leads the brief, explaining that the train will have 80 cars, with 65 reserved for cargo. The remaining 15 cars will serve as living quarters where the hunters and the army can finally rest. Chansok notices that Se-eun gets an entire train car all to herself, showing the absolute VIP treatment given to a rank 10 hunter. The superintendent explains she is directly responsible for protecting the massive shield generator, meaning only a highly select group of hunters will ever have access to her secure car. He also notes that because of the exhausting journey ahead, they will need to set up tight patrol rotations alongside the military. But Se-eun cuts in, making it clear her Janabi Guild is fully responsible for the generator, and the army should stay back. Let's pause here. Nobody else gets near that tech. The superintendent accepts this, explaining their route goes straight through multiple dangerous corrosion zones, 7 of which are highly dangerous alpha-tier zones posing a massive threat. On top of that, ruthless bandits and rogue warlords are out there, posing the absolute biggest danger to the mission. Se-eun makes a sarcastic remark, comparing their situation to an old Western movie with classic train robbers. The superintendent explains they reached out to 8 European warlords, but since only 3 actually responded, at least 5 of them are likely to be extremely hostile. Chansok realizes Stick with me, we are diving into a massive army of enemies, leaving the soldiers completely terrified about their survival. Between terrifying corrosion monsters, deadly bandits, and rogue factions, everyone in the room is sweating bullets. Most of them honestly doubted they would even survive this trip. But Lee Sun stays totally confident, guaranteeing the train's safety no matter what. And just like that, the day of departure finally arrives. They are already at Russia's Vladivostok station, where multiple crews are frantically prepping the massive train for launch. Now watch closely. Shansok walks along the train in his new coat, which stretches over a full kilometer, trying to reach first class. Suddenly, Sangha pops up, reminding him about their promise to handle those mysterious, power-boosting elixirs once this whole mission is officially over. Completely startled, Chansoki asks when she even got here, since she basically materialized out of thin air. She jokes he was too busy enjoying luxury to notice, but trust me, you and I can see everyone here is getting some seriously suspicious VIP treatment. Just then, Jasu Jigon suddenly appeared. All right, you and I are joining them as Chanseo agrees taking a quick look at this train is a great idea. Despite just getting there, he noted it was obvious that the embargo tower went all out on making this happen. Looking at the heavy reinforced doors, he realized this massive security setup looked completely and utterly unbreakable, but he still worried this would attract way too much attention. Jasujin explained that this extra attention was fine since the train was fully armored with military-grade uranium plating for maximum safety. Chance figured that with this insane defense and Lisa Yoon joining the fight, victory was basically guaranteed. There was no way they could fail. But that hope shattered fast when an injured hunter stumbled in, begging for help in carriage 57. The guy was soaked in blood. Chansok charged in with his spear, stunned that things had gone completely wild just 10 minutes after departure. Wasting no time, he swung his spear, slicing through the endless wave of flying monsters rushing them. Even as he fought, he knew there was no end, because these beasts just kept coming. Right then, he wished Lee Saren was here. Watch closely, because we learn the Trans-Siberian Railway is heavily damaged. To keep the train rolling forward, the crew had to fix the broken tracks on the fly. The catch? The repair team did not have the combat strength to survive these monsters alone. Because of that, Lee of May stayed at the back to guard the workers. Chansoki thought that was ridiculous. Keeping their strongest fighter stuck in one spot while everyone else faced chaos seemed like a recipe for a total disaster. Staring up at the sky, swarming with monsters, he realized it was going to be a brutal day. Far away in Khabarovsk, Russia, local warlords were busy clearing out monsters to secure their own private territories. During the chaos, a Korean man showed up to negotiate with a European powerhouse, offering a highly classified job only he could pull off. Meet Nikolai Baronov, the legendary Lord of Khabarovsk. He noted his dinner was already prepped, but this sudden guest just ended up waking more beasts. The Korean shrugged, telling him to wash off the blood first while asking if Russians actually ate this stuff. Nikolai sneered that Koreans got soft and cocky because they had way too many luxury food options, before asking about the gig, proving cash was not his motivator. The Korean nodded, promising he would find this deal highly entertaining. He revealed a train is passing by in 2 days. Trust me, we know this means big trouble. Nikolai laughed it off, knowing the Trans-Siberian tracks were already in complete ruins. But the Korean explained that some awakened had skills to rebuild the rails on the move. Nikolai asked what they were carrying, but the Korean smiled, saying the real story was who guarded the cargo, the famous Janabi Guild. Hearing that name, he asked if that legendary woman was there. Confirmed. Nikolai chuckled, realizing crashing a train guarded by Lee Sun sounded incredibly fun. The Korean corrected him, saying this was no simple robbery. He explained that Janabi had been hired to protect one specific carriage. Nikolai asked if he could just blow up everything, but the Korean shook his head. Handing over a strange device, he explained the mission was actually very simple. Get into the target carriage and plant the device. Nothing else. After that, Nikolai asked if he could trash the rest as he pleased, and the Korean nodded yes. He was free to do whatever he wanted next. Accepting the deal, Nikolai made it clear that destroying cargo was not his main goal. He wanted to slaughter every hunter right in front of Lee Sun, proving there was absolutely nothing she could do to stop him. Everyone there was totally stunned. They wondered how a mere rookie who just became a hunter could act so insanely ruthless. He felt far more monstrous than any of them. Meanwhile, Chansoki finished his fight. He sighed, noting they had barely even started and were already completely exhausted. Sangha showed up, telling the squad to stand up and keep their guards raised. Chirok figured she was the only useful one, but then noticed something ahead and asked if it was an avalanche. The control room reported an obstacle, but trust me, we know this is not going to end well. Suddenly, Liu interrupted. You and I are jumping right into the action as she orders the train to stop. The enemy fires a massive laser, but she easily deflects it skyward. Sangha wonders who these attackers are, and Chansoki points out that only Nikolai's gang near Khabarov would do this. Just then, they throw weird seals at Li Yun's shield, messing with the barrier. Sangha asks if she is alright, but Li Yun reveals her powers are completely sealed. She warns all the hunters that an ambush is coming directly from the side of the train, stating their commander cannot fight and the enemies outnumber them by 5 to 10 times their own strength. She orders them to protect the train anyway. Chinoke tells Song to follow his lead, then leaps straight off the train. The others think he is insane for facing 50 against 500, but they refuse to let a rookie fight alone and charge out too. Lai promises to join the front lines the second she can, but a mysterious man blocks her path, saying it will not be that easy. She demands to know if he is behind the seal. He introduces himself as Li He Yan, a descendant of Dangun and Prince Yan, which technically makes him her distant nephew. Now watch this. Even after meeting a relative, Li Yun strikes with her sword, but the blade breaks instantly. Hyun warns her that this seal will not break easily, advising her to just surrender. She mocks his confidence, saying it is just a broken sword. With a spin of her ring, the blade completely restores itself. The system identifies it as the Mirror Ring, a top-tier artifact she won after clearing a level 1 erosion core. This broken piece of gear instantly records and recreates any weapon upon destruction. Hyun asks if she really intends to keep shattering her sword to break the seal. Meanwhile, switching back to Chansok, an enemy soldier laughs at their tiny squad and demands their surrender, promising to spare their lives. Chansok asks if he is Nikolai, curious how the man is flying when he cannot sense a single drop of mana. Sangha explains that this armor was made 10 years ago under the Predator project, letting regular humans fight without any mana. She notes that South Korea built prototype suits for testing, but cancelled the project because the materials cost a fortune. Chansok wonders how advanced gear like that ended up with a Russian boss. You and I can feel Sangha's panic as she wonders if she can actually kill a human. Chansok tells her to fall back if she cannot do it, promising to handle everything himself. But Sangha points out he has never fought humans either. Still, these guys are trying to murder them by any means, making them no different from monsters. Right then, Chonoke slits the throat of an enemy about to strike Sangha. He tells her to copy him if she can, warning her not to let the guilt consume her. Whether that guilt lasts days, months, or years, it honestly does not matter to him. Surrounded by screams, clashing metal, and spilling blood, Chansok finds it disgusting, yet terrifyingly natural. He is a monster who actually feels right at home in this bloody chaos. He realizes they have the skill advantage but are simply outnumbered, and the enemy's heavy momentum is slowly pushing them back. There is only one way to turn the tide of this battle: decapitate their leader, Nikolai. Nikolai immediately spots Chinoke, asking if he is that famous Korean rookie. Chinoke is shocked, a Russian boss even knows him. Nikolai lunges with an attack, but Chinoke blocks it effortlessly. Disappointed, Nikolai sneers, asking if Korea has gotten this desperate. Chinoke realizes Nikolai is incredibly fast and strong, and that high-tech suit does not have a single scratch on it. This would be a tough fight if he had not trained on Tsushima Island. In a flash, Chinoke sends Nikolai flying backward. Absolutely furious, Nikolai roars that he will end this now, firing a barrage of lasers directly at Chinoke. Dodging the blasts, Chinoke wonders if Nikolai is holding back. Is he actually trying to avoid damaging the train's shield generator? Maybe that massive laser attack earlier was only meant to halt the train. Without Li Yun, the train would be dust. They probably knew she would deflect the strike all along. Too many things do not add up, from Russians using Korean military tech to the sudden arrival of this sealing master. Chinoke ignites flames around his armor, aiming to melt the suit's durability and end this fast. He brutally strikes Nikolai's shoulder, immediately unleashing his signature 16-hit combo technique, landing multiple devastating blows. Noticing a crack in the armor, he knows he has to keep up the intense pressure. Nikolai tries to bargain with Chansoka, claiming they must break the shield together and offering his help. But Chansok slices him in half, saying he does not need help, because you and I both know Li Yun has this covered. Alright, you and I are getting right into the aftermath. The enemies are dead, and Liarin is praising Chansio for exceeding her expectations. Chansio then asked if that man was truly a descendant of Dangun, and she confirmed it, explaining that he fled way before she shattered the seal. But when Chansuke casually went to grab some food, the others immediately questioned him, asking if he was crazy. He asked why they were acting so weird, but Leo Chain snapped that only he could eat in a situation like this. Meanwhile, Chinoki spotted enemy soldiers, desperately trying to recover their abandoned gear. Seeing Nikolai with actual military gear meant he was moving around with heavy government equipment, which meant he either had an incredibly powerful faction backing him up, or the authorities themselves were quietly tolerating his illegal actions. Now pay attention here as Chinoki doubts his allies. Elsewhere, Hyun suffers a brutal headache from overusing his mana. He told his captain he had failed, but the captain insisted that setbacks happen to everyone, advising him to forget today and focus entirely on recovery. Riding the elevator, the captain was shocked that even Lee Ha-yoon was defeated right after Kim Ji. He felt absolute rage, knowing that if he had only recognized Chonok's signature black flames earlier, he would have killed the boy right then and there. Heading down to the secret lab, he confronted Dr. Seo Woo, demanding a status update on their highly classified project. Gun Woo admitted it would take time, but insisted success was possible, as long as they kept pouring massive funding into the research. He also lamented that they still had not figured out how to build the shield generator, but trust me, we will see that soon.